Chapter 936. In front of him, the scroll floated, and Han Fei had mixed feelings. Han Fei sighed. Old Ren, you've found it. Haven't you figured out a way to get it? Ren Tianfei snorted. If I could get it, I would have gotten it a long time ago. Do you understand? If you understand, then go in. Han Fei rolled his eyes. What do I know? Let me watch a little longer. Han Fei really wanted to watch it for a while. In this diagram, he would not look at the arrangement of the stars for now. For example, the 5 elements seemed to exist in some kind of array and complemented each other. If Han Fei guessed correctly, the number of the 5 elements was also one of the key points. If he only placed all the points of the star positions, how would it still look like the 8 trigrams? No, who the hell would know about gossip here? Was it a coincidence? But if there is the 8 trigrams, then there is yin and yang. However, Han Fei didn't know any of them. Ren Tianfei said, it's impossible to understand it just by looking at it. Therefore, he still had to enter the map. Only by going in will we have a chance to understand. Han Fei looked at Ren Tianfei. Are you not going in? Ren Tianfei smiled casually. Of course. How did you get out? Ren Tianfei said, it's simple. He'll come out in 7 days. If you can't find anything in 7 days, you'll have to wait another year to enter. Han Fei couldn't help but gasp. It turned out that he only had 7 days. With that, Ren Tianfei stepped forward. I'll go in first. Whether you can get the map depends on your luck. Killing wasn't allowed in the map. Anyway, whether they could control the map or not, the people of the 1,000-star city wouldn't let them take it. If one came, he would kill one. There's no harm in killing all the so-called geniuses. Han Fei was lost for words. That's easier said than done. Ren Tianfei said, it's a pity that I haven't been able to communicate with my true body for a long time. However, since you have the Starlight Immortal body, it shouldn't be a problem for you to enter. However, be careful of the 9 sounds maze barrier. Don't get trapped in the diagram. Han Fei asked in surprise, what mysteries? Ren Tianfei said, not everybody can come out of the map. The 9 sounds were the 9 sounds of the Great Path. Of course, there might be more than 9. But in the painting, he could only sense 9. Falling into it is equivalent to falling into the picture. Not everyone can come out. 9 sounds? What does it have to do with Joinling? Han Fei knew something was wrong. It shouldn't be related to Joinling, but to the comfort and nature technique. Han Fei couldn't help wondering if the person Jiang Qin was looking for was trapped in the painting. Because of this, Jiang Qin was very concerned about it. But she had given the opportunity to him. It seemed like they had high hopes for him. Thinking about this, Han Fei said, okay, let's go in. The moment Han Fei and Ren Tianfei stepped into the painting, Han Fei found that he was the only one left. Sure enough, as expected, after entering the map, everyone had their own destination. Random? This time, Han Fei didn't appear in the sky or in the ocean. He appeared on the peak of a tall mountain. The towering cliff overlooking the mountains and rivers gave off a majestic aura. How spectacular! A painting depicted a world. The wind whistled, and the stars shone in the vault of heaven. Han Fei looked around. Was there any meaning for him to appear on this top of the mountain? The wind was not in the 5 elements, but in the hexagram, which was soon. Han Fei rubbed his forehead. No, I can't follow this train of thought. This is not my world. If I follow my train of thought, it might involve the heavenly stems and earthly branches. If I don't know the trick, I will never be able to solve the mystery of the sea-quelling painting. There must be a pattern. Han Fei didn't intend to run around like a blind man, so he began to look around. Instead, he sat on the cliff and thought about what he was trying to snatch here. Han Fei's fingers subconsciously began to count. However, he vaguely felt that there seemed to be something wrong with the place he was in. The spiritual energy is abundant, and the essence of the sun and the moon are gathered. This must be a good place, right? Han Fei couldn't help but laugh. If he were an ordinary person, he might be able to tell someone's fortune with this skill. Wait. Han Fei suddenly got up. He didn't come here for nothing. This was an excellent place for cultivation, but also a place where essence gathered. Is it because of luck? Han Fei's eyes lit up. Right. Snatching the sea-quelling painting is a battle for luck. If I can collect the luck of others, won't I monopolize the luck of this world? Han Fei seemed to have figured something out. In the final analysis, he had to win. But in this case, wouldn't he have to find someone else to kill? This should be the way to snatch luck, right? He tried to practice the void fishing art on the top of the cliff. Except that it was faster and purer, there didn't seem to be any special difference. Han Fei looked up at the sky. It was dawn, and the stars were dim, so he didn't see any problem. Han Fei jumped off the cliff, spread the phantom glass wings, and swooped down. Under the cliff, there was a dense forest. But under the forest, it was full of water. Some of the trees were connected by rattan bridges, as if they had been artificially excavated. I should be in one of the forests in the painting, with a cliff next to it. The position should be near the bottom left corner of the picture. As the saying went, take things as they come. Even with Ren Tianfen's guidance, he failed to find the root of the problem. Then he could only go through the land of the 5 elements first. In the upper left corner of the sea-quelling painting, Han Fei remembered that there was a mangrove forest. When he finished here, he would go there first. In the forest, surprisingly, Han Fei didn't see any rare beasts. But in the water, there were occasionally palm-sized fish swimming by in group. However, most of these creatures were only a few levels, similar to the yellow fish. There was nothing special about them. This forest, however, was deep and quiet with murmuring water. Vines hung down disorderly, and the trunks were full of mottled traces of time. With a thought, Little White appeared. Han Fei left Little Black in Forge the Universe in case of accident. Han Fei asked, "Daughter, can you feel any special treasures here?" Little White circled around Han Fei twice like an elf. When she swam past, there were still some sparkles left in the air. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. This time, the breakthrough must be extraordinary. After only 2 minutes, Little White said adorably, "Dad, there is a strong aura, but there is no danger." A strong aura, but there is no danger? Han Fei immediately smiled. "Let's go. Take me there." Since Little White said there was no danger, there was no danger. Han Fei moved forward at full speed, and it only took a moment for him and Little White to come to the so-called strong aura. At this time, Han Fei couldn't help but exclaim, "What a thick tree!" In front of Han Fei was a big tree. Its diameter was probably more than 500 meters. What did this mean? It was so thick that it was astoundingly thick. Moreover, the tree didn't look tall because it was growing in a deep pit. While sticking to the cliff of the gully, he landed at the bottom of the cliff, which was only more than 1,000 meters high. Seeing this tree, information appeared in Han Fei's eyes. Name Tree Spirit Introduction, a special kind of existence, a weird creature between creatures and Taoist laws. It likes tranquility, contains infinite vitality, and symbolizes the breath of life. Level 69 Quality, Legendary Spiritual Energy. Combat Skills Sweet Rain Illuminates, Reversing Vitality, Unabsorbable. When Han Fei saw the word legendary, he gasped. A level 69 legendary creature? This was not something that legendary creatures could compare to. This was a real legendary creature. A legendary powerhouse at the peak of Law Enforcer was probably comparable to an explorer, right? In contrast, if humans and other creatures in nature had to be distinguished who was stronger and who was weaker. In the same realm, humans were probably as strong as rare peak-level or ordinary exotic creatures. Once a creature's quality was legendary, only the real heavenly talents among humans of the same level could compete with it. But it was not a matter whether a heavenly talent could compete with it or not. Perhaps only the rarely seen heavenly talents in 100 years could have a chance to compete with it. This could be seen from the nine-tailed mantis shrimp and the others. If a human of the same realm faced the nine-tailed mantis shrimp and the others, he would definitely be defeated. At this moment, if this tree represented danger, Han Fei felt that he might not be able to beat it at all. Even if he was invincible, this was not a competition of the same level. What was the use of being invincible? Oh, a human is coming. While Han Fei was in a daze, an old voice sounded leisurely. Han Fei immediately took a few steps back. Mr. Tree. Han Fei's adaptability was already very strong. Was someone else talking? The first thing that came to his mind was the tree itself, just like the leafless tree. A phantom appeared in front of the tree. It was an old man, with gray hair and beard, holding a cane in his hand, a little hunched, and looking at Han Fei kindly. Han Fei's eyes narrowed. Can it turn into a human? Han Fei was slightly surprised. Senior Tree. The old man waved his hand, and a wooden table and rattan chair appeared. He said lightly, Humans don't come here often, but there seem to be a lot of them recently. Han Fei asked in surprise, Who else has come? The old man said slightly, It happened decades ago. There were quite a few people who came, and I gave them all some opportunities. The corners of Han Fei's mouth twitched. You call decades ago recent? At that time, I wasn't even born yet, okay? Han Fei saw a wooden teapot appear, and the cup turned out to be spirit awakening fluid. Han Fei couldn't help but be stunned. Is it fashionable to entertain guests so extravagantly these days? Chapter 937. Han Fei picked up the cup of spirit awakening fluid and sighed. Senior, is there a lot of spirit awakening fluid here? The old man smiled gently. This is a rule. Rules exist everywhere between heaven and earth. Do you think there are a lot? Han Fei thought, Old Jiang is right. Spirit awakening fluid is a kind of rule. Otherwise, how could he have drunk it all the way to his stomach? If it were ordinary liquor, Little Black and Little White would have been stuffed to death. Han Fei looked at the old man. Senior, is this also a world? The old man nodded. Some people open the sky, some people open the earth. Why is this not a world? Han Fei's pupils constricted, and he said in shock, You mean, this world was opened up by someone? The old man smiled and nodded. Of course. Han Fei immediately thought of the King's Sea expansion. Why was it called Sea expansion? Could it be that the sea was also opened up? Han Fei couldn't help but ask in surprise, Senior, do you mean that a king can open up the sky, the earth, and the sea? The old man shook his head. I didn't say that. A king can only open up the sea. As for opening up the sky and the earth, how can a king be able to do that? The old man looked at Han Fei with a faint smile. This made Han Fei have a terrible conjecture. The creator of this sea-quelling painting might not be a king-level powerhouse at all, but someone stronger than a king-level powerhouse. Han Fei frowned. Ren Tianfei must know about this. However, this old guy didn't tell him. If this was not a world created by a king at all, then it was only natural that there were opportunities to become a king here. What was wrong with the strong leaving some opportunities for the juniors? Wasn't this what many people would do? Han Fei took a breath. There is a realm above the king? What realm is that? The old man looked up at the sky and said lightly, It's too far away. Seeing the old man's move, Han Fei couldn't help but ask tentatively, Is it opening the sky? The old man didn't speak but just smiled. Human, you are very lucky. After you came in, you came to me. If you had appeared in other places, things would not have been good. Han Fei's pupils constricted. What do you mean? Other places are dangerous? The old man said, There are two reasons why this world can be called a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. First, because there are 4 other guys like me. On the other hand, there's a cosmos formation here, so it's not impossible to kill explorers. Han Fei took a deep breath. There are 4 peak-level law enforcers? Wait, isn't the power of the sea quelling bizarre treasure more than this? The old man nodded slightly. Of course, the stronger the ruler, the stronger the power he can unleash. If a king-level expert was in charge, killing a venerable would be a piece of cake. Han Fei thought to himself, sure enough, a sea-quelling bizarre treasure is still a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. However, Han Fei asked warily, Senior, why are you telling me this? The old man said with a smile, I am a tree. Fighting and killing are not my forte. This is what I tell everyone who comes to me. After all, every single person who comes here has the possibility of controlling this world. Han Fei wondered, what's in it for you to tell the outsiders? If I'm not wrong, if someone controls this world, that person will be your master from now on, right? Suddenly, he had 5 legendary creatures as his henchmen. No one would let go of such an opportunity. The old man nodded. Yes. If he is qualified to control this world, so what if we worship him as our master? Later on, you can also go and talk to some of the others. I think someone should have gone to talk to them now. But it won't be so easy. Han Fei was silent for a moment, thinking quickly, and suddenly said, So, in fact, the 5 of you won't kill the outsiders? Your purpose is to test the outsiders and see who is qualified to control this world? The old man nodded. Han Fei asked again, Then I want to ask, since you are willing to tell me everything you know, do you know how to control this world? The old man smiled and said, You are too naive. Our level is just our level. Getting our approval is just one of the things. As early as many years ago, someone has already been recognized by the 5 of us. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. So, he still can't control this world. Han Fei raised his eyelids. Oh? Is it so easy to be recognized? Han Fei felt that this old man was talking about Ren Tianfei. That guy must have been recognized long ago. Unfortunately, he couldn't pass the later test. Otherwise, he would have taken the map. And when Ren Tianfei was outside, he had already told him the location of the king's opportunity. He didn't tell him about these 5 guys, probably because in his opinion, it was a matter of course to be recognized by these 5 guys. The reason why he looked at him and guessed for a long time was probably that guy was also testing him. Even if he didn't figure out anything, he would probably tell him everything. After all, he probably didn't have any opportunities. After all, his real body wasn't here. Therefore, the crux of the problem had nothing to do with these 5 legendary creatures. So, Han Fei directly skipped the other 4 and said, Senior, I will go to get the other people's approval. I want to know what else I need to do besides the 5 of you. The old man praised, Well, not bad. That's the pride of a strong master. The one who can surpass the 5 of us is the 9 sound. Han Fei immediately asked, What is the 9 sounds? The old man didn't hide it. As if he were chatting, he said, The so-called 9 sounds are the laws created by the creator of this world. Among them, there are 7 sounds, also known as the 7 emotions, namely joy, anger, sorrow, joy, shock, fear, and yearning. As for the remaining 2 sounds, you can listen to them yourself. Han Fei immediately had a bad feeling. 7 emotions and 6 desires? 7 emotions and 6 desires? What did that mean? Obviously, the old man knew about the second sound too. But the old man didn't seem to want to tell him, or couldn't tell him. Why? Also, the 9 sounds seemed to fit with the 9 sounds in the comfort and nature technique. In the comfort and nature technique, there was actually such a description. The Supreme must forget emotions. This was also the source of Han Fei's bad feeling. Han Fei said, Senior, there should be other tests besides the 9 sounds, right? Where is that city? The old man refilled a cup of spirit-awakening fluid for Han Fei and said slowly, That's a place we don't know either. After all, when the world was created, we weren't actually here. However, there is the 9 sounds here. So, you can only go and see that city yourself. Han Fei sighed slightly and asked in the end, Senior, What about the star positions in the sky? The old man shook his head. That's not something we can understand, just like that city. Han Fei was a little lost for words. So, the 5 of you actually don't know much either. Han Fei suddenly said, Senior, if I don't go to the other 4, what will happen? The old man smiled casually. You'll be hunted. Because they don't know if you're qualified to rule this world. Of course, you can also escape from their pursuit. That depends on your ability. Han Fei stood up. One last question. Do you have anything for me? The old man took a deep look at Han Fei, thought for a moment, took out a seed, and handed it over. Okay, you can leave now. As for where the other 4 are, you should know them. If you can't even find them, it's basically impossible for you to rule this world. Han Fei nodded slightly, spread the phantom glass wings, and soared into the sky. Why couldn't he find them? The theory of the 5 elements must have been passed down. The mangrove in the upper left corner of the sea-quelling painting was surrounded by a volcano, where magma seemed to be overflowing. Han Fei controlled the wind god boat to rush away. It was a good opportunity to see how big this space was. Although the tree spirit didn't say it, he had indirectly admitted that there was a realm above the king realm, the heaven-opening realm. Even if it wasn't called that, it should have the ability to open the sky. It wasn't wrong to call it an ability. On this trip, Han Fei would like to see how big a world a heaven-opening state powerhouse could create. The sea-quelling painting was 3 meters wide and more than 20 meters long. It took Han Fei nearly 4 hours to cover the distance of 3 meters, but he was only a quarter away. At this moment, Han Fei looked at the forest burning with flames below and murmured, "It's 9,000 kilometers wide, so this painting is about 60,000 kilometers long." Han Fei couldn't help but swallow. Is this the size of the world a heaven-opening realm expert created? It would take the wind god boat a full day to fly from one end of the painting to the other. This put Han Fei in a difficult position, because he remembered that the ocean was on the west side of the painting. That was to say, it would take him a day to meet the guy in the water. No, this method absolutely won't work. It's too long. I only have 7 days in total. It's enough to meet the 4 monsters. After meeting the guy below, I have to hurry to the mountain that Wuming wants to go to. That mountain is so beautiful that it pierces the sky. It must be the place where the metal attribute legendary creature lived. As for Earth, Han Fei also confirmed this. Earth was virtuous. It nourished the earth and nurtured vitality. It must be the place with the densest vitality except for the tree. And there was a place in the painting where flowers and plants, birds and beasts, fertile lands were all gathered there, located a little to the left of the middle of the painting. This one and the one in the sea should be the most difficult to meet. At this moment, Han Fei couldn't help but grin. He was really a lucky man. As soon as he appeared, he learned a lot of news from the tree spirit. 9,000 kilometers away was the territory of this legendary fire attribute master. It could be said that he had a smooth journey. Han Fei jumped off the fishing boat. He didn't land in the forest of flames, but on the volcano. Bam! After landing, Han Fei shouted, "Senior, I want to control this world. Please come over and see if I'm qualified." Chilla! As Han Fei roared, the flames of the forest rose as far as his eyes could see. In the volcano, magma spurted out. A cold voice came, "Enter the forest." The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly, and he rushed into the infinite flames at a high speed. However, after running for more than 300 kilometers, Han Fei found that there was another person sitting in the flames. Han Fei knew this person. He was from the Empyrean waterfall. However, he had little contact with Han Fei. However, when he invited the Empyrean waterfall to a banquet, this person came. Lu Shan. Lu Shan suddenly opened his eyes. Han Fei, have you discovered the mysteries of this world? Han Fei grinned. I won't tell you. With that, Han Fei looked around and perceived, only to find that 30 kilometers behind him, a fireball was slowly floating towards him. Han Fei asked, "Senior, what do you think? Do you still need to choose?" Lu Shan's eyes flickered, looking at the flying fireball with pity. He had been here for so long, but the fireball didn't appear. As soon as Han Fei came, the fireball came? It could be seen that he wasn't well received. When the fireball arrived, information popped up in Han Fei's eyes. Name: Fire Seed Introduction, a kind of spiritual fire. Because it is confined in this world, it has become the only inheritance of fire in this world. It is called Fire Seed. It's so domineering that it can burn anything under the sea, quelling bizarre treasure. Level 69 Quality, Legendary Spiritual Energy? Battle Technique: Furious Burning, Unabsorbable. Han Fei slightly cupped his hands and said, "Senior, I came from Senior Tree Spirit. Time is running out and we have to go to the next place. What do you think?" Chapter 938. In the fireball, a pair of crimson and weird eyes appeared. At the moment when the fireball was fixed, the surrounding temperature soared. In an instant, it had reached a point that ordinary peak-level hidden fissures couldn't bear. Han Fei's hair had already begun to burn slightly. Han Fei said, "Senior, it's more than that, right? It won't look good if your clothes are burned." A cold voice echoed in the surroundings, "What does it have to do with me?" The flames soared again. As soon as they rose, Han Fei immediately put away the feather suit of wind on his body. Then, in an instant, there was no hair on his body, and he became bald. Lu Shan felt that he was playing with fire, so he hesitated a little and the semi-divine battle suit on his body melted. However, maybe because he was playing with fire, his hair was still there. But his body was the same as Han Fei's. The two men stood here, a little embarrassed. The Fire Seed asked, "Where did you come from?" Han Fei nodded. "Yes." The Fire Seed asked again, "Where are you going?" Han Fei glanced at Lu Shan and said straightforwardly, "The beautiful mountain that pierces the sky." The cold voice said, "Punishing Saber is the strongest of the 5. Are you sure you want to go to him?" Han Fei thought, "So that guy is called Punishing Saber. What kind of creature is he?" Han Fei said with a smile, "As I said, time is running out, so we can only find him according to the distance. The next place is the closest to him." The Fire Seed pondered for a moment and looked at Lu Shan. "What do you want to say?" Lu Shan frowned. He didn't know anything. He only knew that as soon as he appeared, he was here. He searched around but didn't find anything. He thought he had to cultivate here and look for something. However, it seemed that it was not the case at all. However, he didn't know what to do at all. As soon as Han Fei came, he shouted that he wanted to take charge of this world and talked about the tree spirit and Punishing Saber. He seemed to know more than him. Lu Shan didn't know how to answer, so he only said one word: "Fight." Han Fei rolled his eyes at Lu Shan. "Do you know what you're fighting for?" Lu Shan looked fierce. "No matter what it is, I'm fighting for it." The Fire Seed's voice was cold. "Since you want to fight, you too have a fight." The Fire Seed looked at Han Fei. "If you want to be fast, sure. Defeat him within 100 breaths of time." 100 breaths? Han Fei curled the corners of his mouth. Lu Shan also grinned. He had seen Han Fei fight. He was indeed powerful, but in a situation where he was putting his life on the line, he wanted to defeat him within 100 breaths? In his opinion, it was impossible. "Okay." Lu Shan shouted, "Fuse. Fire God Body." Buzz. The surrounding temperature rose again, but Han Fei was still not afraid. He saw a strange-looking, dark red, transforming lobster fusing with Lu Shan. But Lu Shan didn't use any contractual spiritual beasts, which was understandable. Firstly, he didn't have enough contracted spiritual beasts. Secondly, Lu Shan knew that contracted spiritual beasts were ineffective on him. No matter what, Han Fei didn't care. As for that fire god body? Han Fei looked down on it even more. It was just a secret method. Looking at Lu Shan's aura, It had increased by more than 3 times. With this increase in power, he probably already had the power of a peak beginner law enforcement officer. But why would Han Fei be afraid? Devil transformation! Boom! The fist imprint blasted out. Amidst the rolling flames, it was as dazzling as the sun. The terrifying power could topple mountains and overturn seas. This was Han Fei's current power. Flame Dragon Fist. Bam! Crack, crack, crack. Under this punch, Lu Shan was directly sent flying and rolled more than 1,000 meters away on the ground, with more than 10 bones broken. Han Fei looked back at the fire seed. Senior, it's done. Hum! The surrounding fire suddenly surged, and Han Fei's body was already on fire. His skin was ignited, and cracks began to appear. But he didn't even blink. The fire seed took a deep look at Han Fei. The road to the invincible realm looks good. Okay, I approve of you. Han Fei smiled. Senior, do you have any warnings? The fire seed shook a little. No. The tree spirit has told you everything you need to know. Han Fei was a little regretful, but it didn't matter. He said again, Senior tree spirit gave me a seed. The fire seed paused and shot a stone from a distance. Han Fei caught it in his hand. It was a crimson firestone. Han Fei glanced at Lu Shan. You can't compete for this place. You might as well cultivate here for a few days. When the time is up, you can go out. Swoosh! Han Fei rushed to the sky and flew towards the peak without a moment's delay. Lu Shan was shocked. How strong was Han Fei? He was only an intermediate peak-level hidden fisher, but the power he showed just now was really terrifying. This was not the gap between combat skills at all, but the gap between absolute strength. He was defeated by a single punch with the power of 4 waves? He couldn't help but sigh. What a terrifying guy. The fire seed didn't even look at Lu Shan and flew directly into the volcano. A guy who couldn't even take a punch from Han Fei was still fighting for it? Why would he fight for it? In the sky, the wind god boat swept out like a red light. The peak was 15,000 kilometers away, in the middle. After flying for more than 8,000 kilometers, Han Fei found that someone was following him. It was a disciple of the Origin returning peak. It was the guy named Feng Yifei whom he had met once. Han Fei immediately stopped the fishing boat. Why are you following me? Feng Yifei said. When did I follow you? Han Fei didn't bother to talk nonsense and directly put away the wind god boat. I'll send you to sleep for 7 days. Feng Yifei. When Han Fei was about to send him to sleep, in the sea area on the right side of the sea-quelling painting, Mo Fian cupped her hands. Thank you for your recognition, Senior. In the land of birds and beasts, fertile land. Chao Tian nodded. Thank you, Senior, but this world belongs to my brother. His enemies are all my enemies. On the peak that pierced into the sky there was a thatched cottage. In the thatched cottage, a stove was burning. Outside the cottage, there was a small tree with pink fruits growing on it. If Han Fei were here, he would definitely recognize it. Isn't this a peach? At this moment, outside the cottage, 3 people were lying under Wuming, and he frowned. Senior, is it still not enough? A voice came from the house and said coldly, It's enough, but if you want to wait a little longer, you can. Wuming frowned slightly. After hearing Punishing Saber talk about the 5 legends, he thought to himself, wait? It's a waste of time. However, Wuming was not in a hurry and sat down in front of the cottage. He would like to see who would come. Half an hour passed in the blink of an eye, and a figure of light flew close from the sky. Wuming opened his eyes and smiled. Ning Jingyao. However, before Ning Jingyao arrived, a red light flashed in his sight, and the wind god boat arrived too. Wuming was slightly surprised, but on second thought, he realized that it was reasonable. Seeing that Han Fei arrived almost at the same time as him, Ning Jingyao couldn't help but exclaim, What a coincidence! We're together again. Han Fei killed Feng Yifei just now, which took him a little more than 10 minutes. At this moment, seeing Wuming and Ning Jingyao, He couldn't help but smile. You too. Fine, it seems that I have to show my true strength this time. Ning Jingyao grinned. Han Fei, isn't your realm too low? Han Fei smiled. My improvement speed is not fast enough? But I'm about to catch up to you. Wu Ming asked casually, how do we fight? Ning Jingyao said, let me meet this senior first. Han Fei, on the other hand, saw the peach tree outside the cottage and exclaimed, peaches! Swoosh. After a few flashes, Han Fei appeared in front of the peach tree, picked a peach, wiped it on his clothes, and took a bite. Senior, this world is mine. Ning Jingyao laughed. Senior, don't listen to him. He's just teasing you. Wu Ming glanced at Han Fei. How do we fight? Whoosh. Boundless killing intent burst out from the cottage, and a cold voice said, I have the most people here every time. I don't care how you fight, but this guy with a sword is not bad. I acknowledge him. As for the other two, it depends on your strength whether or not I acknowledge you. As for those who are lying on the ground, get lost. Han Fei saw that one of them was Chu Sun from the Grand Void Academy, and the other two seemed to be independent cultivators. Ning Jingyao glanced at them and said, Hey, aren't you going to hide? I'm afraid that the shock wave of the battle will tear you apart. Chu Sun gritted his teeth and vomited a mouthful of blood. Sorry for disturbing you. The three of them left one after another, heavily wounded. Were they not good enough? Of course not. Han Fei had some impression of Chu Sun. He was not bad and could be considered a heavenly talent. However, the 5 legendary experts didn't want a good heavenly talent, but a unique one. Therefore, when ordinary heavenly talents showed up here, they could only be told to get lost. Wu Ming asked for the 3rd time, how do we fight? I'm in a hurry. Han Fei said with a smile, let's fight together. Beat whoever you want, beat whoever you want, beat whoever you want. Ning Jingyao grinned and said, interesting. Let's do it. The punishing saber said coldly, fight in the sky. Swish. Swish. Swish, the 3 of them flew into the sky and stood in a 3-legged formation. Almost at the same time, the 3 of them launched attacks. Devil Change. Star Demonic Saber. 3,000 swords. In an instant, the sky changed color. In the sky, stars and the sun emerged, and the saber aura surged. There were also thousands of sword currents, overwhelming the sky and the earth. There were illusions of heavenly swords, descending from the sky. There was also domineering knife light that cut the void. Dragons roared, and the overlord body rushed forward like a god. Chapter 939. Above the knife furnace, the sharpness of metal soared to the sky. Because they were all acquaintances, they were all very confident. Therefore, he didn't use the void lines or the ability to flash at all. I'm already invincible. What's there to be afraid of in a fair fight? At this moment, the ocean of swords was like a tide, and Han Fei slashed Ning Jingyao. Ning Jingyao attacked Wu Ming with the help of the stars. Wu Ming slashed Han Fei with the light of the sky as a sword. Boom! Han Fei punched out and smashed the shadow of the heavenly sword with 3 punches, before he punched Wu Ming again. When Yang Diu arrived, he was dumbfounded. Damn it, the battle is already so fierce? Punishing Saber's voice fell in Yang Diu's ears. If you want my approval, go in and have a fight. Yang Diu took a deep breath. It seemed that he had come at a bad time. But now that he was here, he simply roared, Will of the God of War, I have an axe. Don't make a way out. There was no telling what Punishing Saber was thinking inside the knife furnace. The people who came in this time didn't seem to be weak. Logically speaking, these 3, these 4, if they were to appear one by one in the past, he would probably approve of them. But this time, should he approve of one of them or all of them? If he only approved of one person, wouldn't he have to wait again if that person couldn't make it to the end? Forget it. As long as they are strong enough to hold the axe, it should be fine. Yes, according to the one with the axe, I won't approve of anyone who doesn't reach this level. Punishing Saber felt that he had made the best choice. He was looking forward to whether or not someone could rule this world this time. He was a little excited. If someone could rule this world, it meant that it wouldn't be long before he was born. Bam! Yang Diu was the first to fall. His face was swollen and covered in cuts, and he kept vomiting blood. Veins bulged on Yang Diu's body. Son of AB***, 3 freaks. Bam! Ning Jingyao smashed to the ground, leaving a human-shaped pit on the top of the mountain. Pooh! Before he saw the person, he saw a fountain of blood spurting out. Ning Jingyao rolled to his feet, looked up at the sky, and scratched his head. I knew this guy's physique was abnormal, but I didn't expect it to be so strong. His fists, Kacha! As the dragon roared, Han Fei descended from the sky and punched Wu Ming. The sword dragon, transformed by the 3,000 sword shadows, was shattered by Han Fei's punch. Bang! Wu Ming was punched to the top of the mountain and sank into the ground. Only his head was left on the ground, and blood was flowing out of his 7 orifices. Han Fei's momentum was still the same. Although he was covered in blood, it didn't matter. At this moment, he was holding 3 energy fruits in his hand and stuffing them into his mouth. At the same time, he cast the divine healing technique on himself. Han Fei landed and glanced at Yang Diu. If you hadn't launched your strongest attack, I could have waited to hit you. Yang Diu hissed a few times. If I hadn't used that axe, I would have been killed by the 3 of you. Ning Jingyao sighed. It's a shame that I would have been stronger if it were at night. Han Fei sneered. Okay, you're not strong enough. It's the same at night. Nameless transformed into a sword and emerged from the ground. He was in a sorry state, but his arrogance did not diminish. Yes. How many waves have you reached? Han Fei calculated. Not much, just 8 waves. It was easy for him to launch 10 waves with the help of the momentum. The punishing saber's cold voice came out of the room. Okay, I admit defeat to all 4 of you. There are many tests here, far more than mine. Let's see which of you can finish all of them. Han Fei was briefly stunned. You admit defeat to all of them? Han Fei immediately said, Senior, I'll pick a peach to take away. The punishing saber nodded. Okay. Wu Ming and the other 2 didn't understand why Han Fei wanted to pick a peach. Ning Jingyao asked in confusion, Is it the best spiritual fruit? Han Fei shook his head. No. It's just a regular spiritual fruit. Ning Jingyao didn't believe that Han Fei was such a good eater, so he picked one for himself. Wu Ming had no interest in food, so he didn't pick one. Yang Diu, on the other hand, had other plans. Although Han Fei was a good eater, how could a regular spiritual fruit be worth his time? There must be something wrong with it. So, he had to pick one too. Han Fei was lost for words. Hey. Do you like peaches too? Chomp. Han Fei bit the peach and the juice flowed out. He was quite enjoying it. Yang Diu was taken aback. Did Han Fei really just want to eat? He didn't know what to say about this foodie. Ning Jingyao also took a bite like Han Fei. His eyes glittered. It definitely tasted good. Han Fei said, In that case, I'm leaving. Don't follow me. Yang Diu chuckled. Who's following you? Ning Jingyao looked at Yang Diu as if he were an idiot. Everybody had the same purpose at this moment. Han Fei must have gone to the next senior. Aren't you going too? Wu Ming rose to the sky with a swish. I'm leaving too. Ning Jingyao finished the peach in a few bites, threw the pit off the cliff, and left too. Holding the peach, Yang Diu scratched his head and followed him. However, the punishing saber in the cottage was dumbfounded. What a bunch of fools. The boy with transparent wings only took a bite of the peach and put it away. However, one of them didn't pick it at all, one ate it and threw the pit away, and the last one held the peach like a fool. Could he really trust them? How could the punishing saber not understand Han Fei's purpose of picking the peach? The first thing Han Fei did when he arrived was to pick the peach. Of course, it wasn't to eat it, because only he had this peach. Holding this peach meant that he approved of this person. Han Fei's smart move was that he didn't even fight but picked the peach without much effort. Even if he was really weak, the punishing saber would probably approve of him. But the other three fools made the punishing saber feel that they might not be smart enough. At this moment there was no one here. Just now, no one entered the cottage to take a look. Otherwise, they would have been surprised that the punishing saber was not a creature at all, but a knife in a knife furnace. At this moment, the flames flickered as if it was wondering if it had chosen the wrong person. Han Fei put away the peach. Just now, he punched Yang Diu very hard. In fact, he wanted to kill him. Unlike Wu Ming and Ning Jingyao, Han Fei was their friend. In this competition, he was confident that he was invincible and could control this world. However, Han Fei had nothing to do with Yang Diu. He actually wanted to kill Yang Diu with that punch just now. However, at that moment, his heart palpitated and he felt that he shouldn't have killed him. That palpitation came from the cottage. Han Fei murmured, "The 5 legendary creatures actually don't want anyone to die. They want more people to be approved by them. In this way, the chances of someone controlling this world will be greater." Han Fei was now convinced that these 5 creatures really wanted someone to control this world. Maybe they wanted to come out. Maybe it was for other reasons. It was most likely that they had stayed in this place long enough, so they were eager to come out. Han Fei didn't plan to go to the sea, mainly because it seemed to be too far. Although there were rivers on the land, the water attribute legendary creatures should occupy the sea, which was more in line with the style of the legendary creatures. And Han Fei was now going to the earth attribute legendary creature that symbolized the earth. It was only 10,000 kilometers away from the cottage. But Han Fei had been in the appearance map, then chatted with the tree spirit and fought with Wu Ming and the others. At this moment, night had already fallen, and there were only 4 hours left for the first day. At this moment Han Fei arrived. He landed on the ground, where there was a nest of rabbits arching in a tree hole. There were rats digging holes, wild cats peeping at Han Fei, and birds sleeping in their nest. However, these creatures, for some reason, were just the most ordinary creatures. Han Fei didn't yell but spread his voice in all directions. "Senior, I want to control this world. I have been approved by the tree spirit, the fire seed, and the punishing saber. This is the token." With that, Han Fei took out a seed, a flint and a bitten peach, which were suspended in the air. However, as soon as Han Fei said that, a heavy and steady voice sounded, "Wait for 4 hours." Han Fei frowned slightly. Isn't this a waste of time? However, there were still 6 days and 4 hours left. He didn't need to panic. He could wait for 4 hours. So Han Fei found a piece of grass at random, lay down on his back, and looked up at the sky. Looking at the flashing starry sky, he marveled at the terrifying power of a heaven-opening expert. He could even create a world. He was really strong. That star position, in Han Fei's eyes, was still weird. He paid special attention to the star that Ren Tianfin pointed at. After watching for about half an hour, he found that the star was changing color and seemed to be shaking. He wondered if his eyes were playing tricks on him. At this moment, a bear with a hipster hairstyle crawled towards him. Han Fei thought it was one of them, but it turned out to be a lazy bear. The lazy bear's characteristic was that its hair was messy, and it liked to open ant hills with its big claws to suck the panicked insects. This lazy bear was only level 21, obviously not that legendary creature. The stupid bear crawled to Han Fei's side, lay down, and fell asleep next to Han Fei. Han Fei. After a while, another wild cat seemed to think that Han Fei was not a bad guy, so it also walked over, lay down next to Han Fei's belly, and rubbed against Han Fei's hand. Han Fei was amused. What an idyllic life. Han Fei felt that this person must have a very good personality. Thus, he closed his eyes without a care and began to sleep. He was really sleeping. It was very easy for cultivators to fall asleep. Empty your mind and fall asleep in less than a minute. As long as an expert came over, he would immediately be alerted. At some point, Han Fei felt a tongue licking him. He subconsciously opened his eyes, only to see a pangolin covered in gold-rimmed scales staring at him. Information appeared in his eyes. Name Earth 9 Introduction. It was originally a spiritual fruit of heaven and earth. Because it was eaten by a pangolin, it occupied its body and ate the ninth sound of heaven and earth. It knew that all living things were fabricated, so it loved all living things. Because it was imprisoned in this world, it was also known as the Nine Earths. Because Dijo loved all living beings, she never fought, and this rule would never be broken. Level 69 Quality. Legendary is spiritual energy. Battle skills. Void drilling, armored cage, invincible golden body, unabsorbable. Earth 9 glanced at Han Fei. Everyone is sleeping at night. It's not suitable for conversation. Now we can talk. Chapter 940. When he saw Earth 9's information, Han Fei was shocked. Did it eat the ninth sound? What's going on? It can even eat sound? Also, Earth 9's body turned out to be a spiritual fruit. What kind of spiritual fruit is this? It has its own consciousness and occupied someone else's body. Earth 9 stared at Han Fei and said, "You seem surprised." Han Fei got up, only to find that the lazy bear had half of its head on his lap, which made him quite speechless. Are these animals not afraid of strangers? Han Fei pushed the lazy bear's head away, only to find that it simply changed its sleeping position and continued to sleep. He looked around, only to find that a large group of small animals had gathered here. Little Ominous Sue, Little Fortune Pear, Big Jeju, Fat Fortune Butterfly. A whole bunch of messy creatures were surrounding them. Han Fei thought to himself, they really love all living beings. They look quite harmonious. Han Fei said with a smile, "Senior, I'm going to take charge of this world. Time is running out. Do you have any tests, Senior?" Earth 9 said with its small and long mouth, "I don't have any objections. You've already passed the test by treating these creatures kindly. Are you going to water luster next?" Han Fei thought to himself, is the fifth creature called water luster? Han Fei shook his head. "No, I don't have the time. I'm going to listen to the 9 sounds myself." "Well," Earth 9 said somewhat awkwardly, "well, you may only hear the 8 sounds. I ate the 9th sound." Han Fei immediately pretended to be shocked and exclaimed, "You ate it? Can sound be eaten too?" Earth 9 slightly shook its head. The 9 sounds are not just sounds, but also a law of this world. Before, I had a special talent so I could swallow this sound. So now, only the 8 sounds are left. Han Fei pretended to be surprised, but then he changed the topic. "Senior, are the remaining 8 sounds simple? Senior, do you know why the arrangement of the stars in this world is so special?" Earth 9 shook its head. "I don't know. However, the 8 sounds can't be simple. Aren't you in a hurry?" Han Fei said with a smile, "I'm in a hurry. I'd like to ask, how many people have been here?" Earth 9 replied solemnly, 18. 9 of them didn't get my approval. Han Fei was surprised. Earth 9 is such a loving creature. How could it let someone fail the test? Earth 9 said, "I don't want my future master to be someone without love and compassion." "Senior, may I know what the 8th sound is?" Earth 9 replied seriously, "I forgot." Han Fei's eyelids twitched. It coincided with the 9 sounds of the comfort and nature technique. Sure enough, Jiuyin Ling's ancestor heard the 9 sounds technique from the sea-quelling painting. Also, Jiuyin Ling's ancestor must have been very powerful to listen to the 9 sounds. However, her ancestor didn't get the sea-quelling painting, which meant that he didn't pass the final test. If the 8th sound was the exalted oblivion, then the 9th should be the sound of great love. This Tao sound was devoured by Earth 9, which lowered the difficulty for the examinees. However, Han Fei was confused. He didn't know what the ultimate emotion-forgetting sound was. how to break it. This further confirmed Han Fei's suspicion that there was something wrong with Juan Ling's comfort and nature technique. Han Fei cupped his hands and asked, Senior, can you devour the 8th sound? Earth 9. Earth 9 shook its head solemnly. No, I lost my swallowing ability after devouring the 9th sound. Also, the 8th sound and the 9th sound contradict each other. I can't eat it even if I want to. Deep in thought, Han Fei nodded and asked, Senior, do you have any keepsake for me? Earth 9 thought for a moment, and a scale flew up and fell into Han Fei's hand. Han Fei heaved a sigh. Okay, I'm leaving. Wait a minute. Han Fei was about to leave when Earth 9 stopped him. Water luster is a bit ruthless. It's like a fire seed. If you don't meet it, it won't be easy to deal with it when it comes to you. Han Fei smiled. Thank you for telling me, Senior. By the way, Senior, where can I hear the 9 sounds? Earth 9 said, near that city. Han Fei smiled. Okay. Han Fei left without any hesitation. As for Earth 9's warning, he heard it but didn't take it to heart. He already had 4 keepsakes. He didn't believe that water luster wouldn't give him a hard time. After all, the 5 creatures essentially wanted to find a master for the sea-quelling painting. Water luster didn't have to come here to give him a hard time. A day had passed, and Han Fei didn't think it would be so simple. Through the conversation with the tree spirit and Earth 9, Han Fei felt that the 8th sound was the key. The 9 sounds sect was nothing more than a test for them. After that test, they would have to take other tests in the city. He wondered if there was any way to pluck the star from the sky in the city. Han Fei was rather lost for words. Since when did I dare to pick stars from the sky? However, Han Fei couldn't care less about that right now. If everything went as expected, he would be the first person to pass the test of the 5 legendary experts. Oh no, 4 legendary experts. The 5th one was ignored. About half an hour later, Han Fei saw a land that seemed to be covered in an array. Everything there was arranged in a strange way, in accordance with the arrangement of the stars. The grass, trees, mountains, and rocks were very regular, which could be seen at a glance. Also, there was a vague fog, which made these scenes even more fantastic. Of course, Han Fei wouldn't rush into that place. Logically speaking, he should be at most 5,000 kilometers away from that city. However, the fog and the star array on the ground had completely blocked this area. Of course, he could fly to the highest altitude and directly fly over. However, he would inevitably fly past the floating island and directly fly to the other side of the sea-quelling painting. Along the fog, he went up from the middle of the sea-quelling painting to the middle. Only then did Han Fei confirm that the 9,000 kilometers should be all blocked. The fog wasn't thick, and he could even see quite far away. However, he had flown so far and didn't see a single person. Those who were qualified to grab the sea-quelling painting hadn't come yet, and they were still looking for the 5 legendary experts. Han Fei grinned. I have to go in anyway, so let's go in. Han Fei stepped into the fog. Immediately, the scene in front of him changed, and he came to the surface of the sea. Illusion or something else. Clang above the sky, there seemed to be a bell ringing, echoing between heaven and earth. Whoop! The sea rose high, and angry waves slapped at Han Fei. At this moment, Han Fei knew that the test had come. However, in the next second, a pair of shocking wings rose from the water. It was a green phoenix. After spreading its wings, it was more than 300 meters long and stood directly opposite Han Fei. Water luster? Han Fei frowned. Was it because he didn't go to visit her? However, no, it couldn't be Water luster's real body, because there was no information in his eyes. However, all of a sudden, Han Fei felt as if a mountain was pressing down on him. A terrifying aura directly covered him. A crisp and cold voice said, Human, are you not going to come to see me? Han Fei narrowed his eyes and flipped his hand, and 4 items appeared: a seed, a flint, a peach, and a scale. Han Fei said, Senior Waterluster, I've been recognized by the 4 seniors. It's a bit of a waste of time to go to your place. I want to take charge of this world, and the seniors want the sea-quelling painting to have a new master. In this case, why do you want me to waste more time? Clatter. In the blink of an eye, the sky was covered by dark clouds, and on the sea, huge waves were rising. The air became extremely cold, and the big bird was intimidating. For some reason, Han Fei's heart slightly trembled. Huh! A sense of fear began to grow in him. Waterluster said coldly, Human, do you think you don't need my approval after you've been recognized by the other 4? Are you looking down on me? Han Fei said solemnly, Absolutely not. Senior, even if you don't trust me, don't you trust the other 4? Waterluster's wings trembled. Why should I care about them? If you don't come, I'll kill you. Han Fei saw that the waves were rising again, and they were already about 300 meters high. Faced with such huge waves, Han Fei wondered if the big bird was serious. Wasn't this an illusion? However, Han Fei's eyes flickered. I said I wanted to take charge of this world. Now we've met and we've talked, but you don't have to kill me. After all, I'm the first one to enter this mist. So, you're the voice of fear, aren't you? Before Waterluster said anything, Han Fei sneered. Ever since you showed up, I've felt fear growing in my heart. However, don't you know that I'm walking on the path of invincibility? He suddenly punched out a golden fist at Waterluster, who was completely disproportionate to his size. Han Fei roared, I'm taking over this world. What can you do to me? Bam! 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 Dozens of holes were left in the wave. Waterluster screamed, and lightning struck Han Fei. However, Han Fei was not scared at all. He was used to lightning. What was there to be scared of? When the 300-meter-high waves came at him overwhelmingly, Han Fei remained unmoved. Han Fei stared at Waterluster. You've chosen the most wrong law of music. If I want to take charge of this world, I'll beat anyone who dares to come, bem. The waves poured down and knocked Han Fei over. However, in the next second, Han Fei appeared in the mist. Han Fei curled his lips. As I expected. It's not an illusion? Han Fei was dripping with water, and his internal organs were rolling. There was blood on his chest, and he was surprised. Damn it! It's not an illusion, is it? Han Fei had a speculation. This place might have really moved him to the surface of the sea with the help of the cosmic stars. But the fear just now made him very sure that it was a test. Did it mean that he had seen Waterluster and passed the sound of fear? Han Fei couldn't help but gasp and cast the divine healing technique on himself. At the same time, he stuffed energy fruits into his mouth. Han Fei was lost for words. This was only one sound of fear, and it wasn't an illusion at all. What about the other 7 sounds? Chapter 941. The mist was so thin that it couldn't even be called a mist. It seemed that the sounds of nature were hovering in the sky, lingering. Han Fei's eyes were firm, and he began to step forward. As Han Fei walked for dozens of kilometers, he heard a lot of sounds in his ears. With a sudden rumble, he appeared in a palace. The palace was splendid, and the floor tiles under his feet were like jade, crystal clear. The pillars and beams in the palace were all inlaid with gold and jade, very gorgeous. But in Han Fei's ears there was a gentle voice, which seemed very familiar to Han Fei. Old Han? Han Fei frowned. He knew that he was caught in an assessment again. But if the assessment was real, why did old Han's voice appear? Han Fei gently opened the curtain, only to see a woman leaning weakly against the bed in an exquisite lotus tent. The woman's face was a little cold, but her face was delicate. Even though she was dressed in plain clothes, she was still extremely beautiful, like a fairy. But when Han Fei saw the woman, he was stunned. She looked so familiar. Why did he feel that he had seen this woman somewhere before? And the person he was familiar with, old Han, was sitting on the bed with a bowl of medicine. Han Guanshu said, "Come on, drink the medicine. The woman on the bed smiled faintly. Is it worth it? You've fallen to such a low level just to make me pregnant with this child? Han Fei's blood boiled when he heard this. Who is this woman? Han Fei swallowed, suppressed the urge to rush out, and tried to listen carefully to what the two were talking about. Han Fei wondered if this was an illusion. But he pinched himself. It hurt. No, if this is real, with old Han's strength, how could he not find me? At this time, old Han spoke. Han Guanshu said with a gentle smile, For you, for this child, everything is worth it. The woman on the bed hummed. I know you have sacrificed a lot, but what if your wish is not fulfilled? Han Guanshu shook his head slightly. I don't regret it. The woman smiled. Even if I have to be the enemy of the world? Even if I have to be the enemy of the world? Han Guanshu's movements were still gentle. Even if I have to be the enemy of the world. Han Fei was puzzled. What are these two talking about? They seemed to be quite gentle with each other. However, every time he opened his mouth, he wanted to become enemies with the entire world? Just how big of a matter was it that he had to make the entire world his enemy? Moreover, if I'm not mistaken, this woman should be my mother, right? F***ck. One of them is so handsome, and the other is so beautiful. How can the quality of their son be so low? Han Fei was about to listen more, when the picture suddenly changed and the scene just now disappeared. Instead, Han Fei saw an unimaginable scene. It was still the same place and the same bed, but the scene in front of him chilled him. The woman was still sitting on the bed, but her face was expressionless. Moreover, there was a knife in her hand and it was covered in blood. In front of her was a baby in swaddling clothes. The baby's body was also covered in blood. The silk cloth wrapping the baby gradually turned red. For a moment, Han Fei's heart was numb, and he was completely stunned. Was a mother going to kill her son? How could this be? Wasn't everything fine just now? Because of this, old Han seemed to have fallen from the venerable level. And it didn't seem to have fallen by just a little bit. It was supposed to be a happy scene between husband and wife. How did it turn into such a bloody scene in the blink of an eye? And to Han Fei's shock, old Han, who was standing by the bed at this moment, was also holding a knife in his hand, and his back was to him. Han Fei couldn't see his face clearly, nor did he know what he was thinking now. However, on that knife, a weird red light surged. Old Han stood for a moment, took 2 steps forward, and put the knife against the woman's heart. Han Fei exclaimed, Wait a minute, don't, puff! The long knife was directly inserted into the woman's body. A weird power swept through the woman's whole body, and her vitality was almost cut off in an instant. Han Fei roared, Old Han, are you crazy? However, Han Fei found that when he wanted to rush in, his body couldn't move at all, as if it was frozen. There was no telling if it was because of Han Fei's shout, but Han Guanshu looked back. Then, Han Fei saw that old Han's eyes were scarlet and lifeless. He was as cold as a statue. Han Guanshu's gaze happened to be in the direction where Han Fei was standing. To Han Fei's surprise, he saw the corners of his mouth slowly curl up, revealing a creepy and cold smile. Han Guanshu just looked at where he was in silence. There was no telling whether or not he saw Han Fei. Anyway, he just looked at him. Han Fei was a little creeped out. Impossible. Old Han is such a gentle person. Damn it, is old Han trying to avenge me by killing his wife? That's not right. I didn't see my mother kill me. But old Han is not in a good state right now. He might be the murderer. Suddenly, Han Fei realized that he was immersed in the story of old Han and his mother. At this moment, his heart was surging like a surging tide. Am I not transcending the laws of the 9 sounds? Fake, it must be fake. Han Fei tried to calm himself down. However, all kinds of thoughts popped up in his mind. He felt that it couldn't be fake either. The sea-quelling painting couldn't know that. If it did, it must have read everything from the depths of his mind. After all, there were only 3 people in this place, and the baby who was still in the cradle should be him. Although babies couldn't remember things, it didn't mean that these things had disappeared. All of this might be buried in the deepest part of Han Fei's memory. In any case, the fact that old Han killed his mother was deeply imprinted in his mind. Recovering from the shock and fury just now, Han Fei couldn't help but sigh at the weirdness of his life. However, this weird story didn't make Han Fei lose his mind. Because, in a sense, it wasn't actually him. However, from an emotional point of view, he would definitely be touched. After a brief shock, Han Fei felt a sense of sadness slowly coming from his heart. No, it's this emotion that automatically came to me. The sadness came so suddenly and clearly. Could this also be considered a kind of test? However, this level of test didn't really arouse some deeper emotion in the bottom of his heart except for surprise and sadness. However, why didn't he leave this environment? After all, what should have happened had happened, and what should have been seen had been seen. Why was he still here? At this moment, Han Guanshu slowly turned around and stared in Han Fei's direction ruthlessly. Han Guanshu took 2 steps forward and suddenly said, "I don't care who is watching. Whoever stands in my way will be killed." Han Fei was immediately shocked. Old Han couldn't see him, but he knew that someone was watching? What the F***ck is going on? Han Fei tried to calm down from this state. How can I get out of this space? Or rather, I can't leave as long as I'm still immersed in emotions? Then how can I get rid of these emotions? Han Guanshu held the knife and raised his hand. Han Fei shouted, "Old Han, if you slash down, your son will be gone." However, Han Guanshu didn't seem to hear him at all. The knife emitted a weird red light, and Han Fei immediately roared, "Hey! See quelling painting, what's wrong with you?" Right when Han Guanshu was about to attack, Han Fei roared, "Fuse!" The surrounding scenery instantly changed. Just now, the palace was already gone. Han Fei, on the other hand, was already standing in the mist. Han Fei was overjoyed. Fortunately, he had fused with Little Black. He could let Little Black's thoughts instantly replace his own. But then, Han Fei found that his thoughts seemed to be somewhat out of control. A bloodthirsty desire filled his heart. Han Fei's heart sank. After Little Black and Little White reached level 50, the weird bloodthirsty desire appeared again. And now, he didn't have peppermint leaves in his mouth, which made him half crazy. Although part of Han Fei's consciousness remained, it was difficult for him to control his body again. At this moment, a roar came from the sky and the scene changed again. This time, he appeared in a certain palace at the bottom of an abyss. What came into his sight was none other than Chun Huangdian. Damn it, Han Fei was stunned. What was the sea-quelling painting's ability exactly? Could it be that it could bring him across the boundless sea realm? Could it take him to the other end of the infinite ocean? However, when he saw Chun Huangdian, Han Fei almost couldn't hold back his fury anymore. 9 sounds, you can't do this no matter how strong you are, can you? You can easily kill me like this. At this moment, Chun Huangdian was floating and sitting cross-legged in the seawater. At the moment Han Fei arrived, he suddenly opened his eyes. Who's there? Chun Huangdian can't see me? However, although he couldn't see him, he couldn't see him. If Chun Huangdian pointed his finger at him, Han Fei would have been blown into pieces, and his soul destroyed. Little Black, do you want your master to die? There was no telling if it was because his mental waves were too intense, but Little Black was more or less relaxed, allowing Han Fei to control part of his body. Han Fei wanted to take out peppermint leaves and put them in his mouth, but his mind was too chaotic to communicate with the demon purification pot. However, Han Fei noticed that the mermaid's tear that he had been wearing on his chest began to flicker at this moment. Chun Huangdian slightly frowned. My soul seal broke the void. Where did the sea expansion expert come from? What do you want from the mermaids? If you don't explain yourself today, you won't be leaving. Han Fei thought to himself, sea expansion? If I were a sea expansion expert, I would have killed you a long time ago. Chun Huangyan frowned even harder. You're still not showing yourself? Do you want me to force you to show yourself? Hula! As Chun Huangyan pressed his hands together, a void mirror scanned the place. Han Fei's figure was clearly revealed at this moment. Chun Huangyan's eyes were full of surprise. It's you? You're not dead? Chapter 942. Han Fei secretly cursed, not good, not good. Is this guy really that capable? How can he see me so clearly? It must be noted that old Han didn't see Han Fei at all, even though he seemed to have noticed something just now. However, Chun Huangyan had simply revealed himself to the world? Han Fei felt that he was about to lose control of himself. There was a strange power that was manipulating his anger. Chun Huangyan put on a smile after the initial surprise. You're not dead? I'm very curious. How did you survive? Well, you seem very angry. Let me guess. You couldn't have expanded so quickly, so you must have borrowed some unknown power. Chun Huangyan landed on the ground. He wasn't in a hurry at all. Instead, he put on a devilish smile. You seem to be controlling yourself. It means that you can't control the power that brought you here. Your body must be somewhere far away. If I attack you right now, you'll probably die again. Wait. Chun Huangyan suddenly said, You won't die. If I attack you right now, you'll probably be heavily wounded. This power seems to be able to protect you. Interesting, and here I thought that it was a monarch who had descended. Ah, Han Fei. Before Chun Huangyan continued, an exclamation broke the impasse. However, he saw a beautiful figure run in from the side of the palace door with a swish. Who else could it be but Xia Shaochan? However, Xia Shaochan hadn't evolved into a human form yet. She was still a beautiful mermaid. The moment he saw Xia Shaochan, Han Fei suddenly realized that his mind paused for a moment. Seizing the opportunity, Han Fei roared in a low voice, Deactivate! Who? At that moment, Han Fei's body slightly softened. The evolved Little Black and Little White couldn't be fused easily anymore. Even if he wanted to fuse them, he would have to stuff peppermint leaves in his mouth first. Otherwise, he wouldn't know what he would do if he was completely lost. Based on what happened to old Han just now, Han Fei knew that he couldn't leave until his emotions were gone. But thankfully, the fusion with Little Black was deactivated, and he regained control of his body, or more precisely, his soul. This made Han Fei's anger suddenly disappear for the most part. When he saw Xia Shaochan, he couldn't help but feel delighted. This kind of emotion also grew very quickly. All these changes made Han Fei feel that it was a lifetime ago. Han Fei sighed slightly and said, Can you hear me? Seeing Han Fei open his mouth and say something, Xia Shaochan was a little confused. However, she immediately stood in front of Han Fei. This time, don't hurt him. Chun Huangyan opened his hands. I didn't move. Chun Huangyan opened his hands and set up some sort of law. He said casually, You should be able to hear it now. His main body was too far away from here. Even if I don't make a move, if he doesn't return for a long time, he will still be heavily injured. Xia Shaochan was shocked and quickly reached out to grab Han Fei. However, how could one's soul and body touch? Xia Shaochan seemed to have stretched her hand into some kind of nothingness. Xia Shaochan, can you hear me? Although Xia Shaochan didn't catch Han Fei, she seemed to have heard Han Fei's voice. She nodded quickly and cried in joy. Han Fei hurried to comfort her. Don't cry, don't cry. Listen to me and don't cry. You can't trigger my emotions. Otherwise, I won't be able to go back when I'm in a bad mood. Tisk tsk. Interesting. Chun Huangyan extended his hand and grabbed a spiritual fruit from the void. He took a bite and said as if he were watching a show, You can't go back because of your emotions. Then, you were brought here by that thing because you were angry, weren't you? Chun Huangyan rubbed his eyebrows. Let me take a guess. First of all, the thing you touched couldn't have been touched by regular sea-quelling bizarre treasures. It was either an ultra-quality sea-quelling bizarre treasure or a human artifact. No matter which one it is, it shouldn't be something that the current you can subdue. So, since you didn't tame it, you must have been trying to tame it. One of the requirements of the test from that weapon is to trigger your emotions. So, you can't go back until your emotions are gone. Han Fei tried not to be emotionally affected by Chun Huangyan's words. At this moment, Han Fei had an idea that Chun Huangyan had already reached the king realm. So, it was only natural that he had guessed that. Xia Xiaochan was at a loss. She asked in a hurry, "What should I do?" Han Fei, on the other hand, looked at Chun Huangyan. "Why? Do you think I can't tame this weapon?" Chun Huangyan shrugged. "You're in great danger even if I don't attack you. Of course, you can try to tame it. Since those people haven't found you yet, I won't bother to attack you. However, I won't help you either. Can you go back? It's all up to you." Xia Xiaochan demanded angrily, "What do you mean?" Chun Huangyan simply summoned a chair and sat on it, before he said confidently, "It's his own choice. It has nothing to do with me. If he can't even take care of such a problem, how can he come to you?" Xia Xiaochan snorted and ignored Chun Huangyan. She looked at Han Fei and asked nervously, "How can I help you? What should I do? Can I push you back?" Han Fei said, "Wait a moment." With that, Han Fei closed his eyes and tried to stabilize his breath. What followed was strong confidence, extreme confidence. Why should he be scared? Even if he died, little Fatty could resurrect him. If he missed the opportunity to get out, he could just stay in the sea-quelling painting for decades. What was there to be scared of? Han Fei was greatly reassured when he thought that. In fact, he was mainly stimulated by Chun Huangyan's attitude. He couldn't lose to this guy at all. He had to be calm. When he opened his eyes again and saw Xia Xiaochan, Han Fei smiled. "How are you doing here? Did this guy do anything to you?" Chun Huangyan shrugged and continued watching the show. Xia Xiaochan shook her head. "I've been cultivating every day. Tell me, how can I send you back? You can't stay here for long, or it'll be dangerous." Han Fei laughed. "Don't panic. Wait for me. Don't get too close to other people, especially the male mermaids." Xia Xiaochan quickly nodded. I know. Just go back. Your soul will be greatly damaged if you do that." Han Fei said, "It's fine. I know what I'm doing." As he spoke, Han Fei looked at Chun Huangyan. "Can I challenge you if I become a Sea King?" Chun Huangyan said casually, "You'll have to become a Sea King first. Not everybody can become a Sea King. I think you must have a way to resurrect yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't have escaped from me. However, do you think you can become a king just by relying on that?" Han Fei smiled confidently. "Just wait." Chun Huangyan raised his head and smiled. "I'll be waiting." Han Fei looked at Xia Xiaochan and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine. Focus on your cultivation. I have no time to talk to you. I have to go now." Xia Xiaochan quickly nodded. "I'm glad you're fine. Just go. I'll wait for you." Han Fei seemed to have discovered that the so-called emotions could actually be shattered by the invincible will of "my heart is invincible." On that point, Chun Huangyan's sarcasm exactly triggered his pride. In fact, if he were Chun Huangyan, he was 99% confident that he would attack without leaving any trouble for himself. But Chun Huangyan didn't do that. He had absolute confidence in himself. How could he lose to Xia Xiaochan? Just based on this, he would never admit that he would lose to this guy Han Fei's soul emanated a golden brilliance, and he swooshed away in the next second. Xia Xiaochan hurried to grab him, but she caught nothing. However, she smiled. "It's good that he's not dead. Anything was possible as long as he wasn't dead." She had been cultivating so hard to become stronger so that she could go back. Looking at the power that Han Fei's soul released just now, Chun Huangyan couldn't help but remark, It seems that this guy has embarked on the real path of invincibility. Xia Shaochan quickly grew wary. Don't you dare touch him, Chun Huangyan said in disdain. So what if he becomes a king? Can he kill me if he becomes a king? Tsk. However, I would have killed him if I hadn't seen the mermaid's tears just now. Xia Shaochan instantly glared at Chun Huangyan. No. Chun Huangyan didn't respond but looked at Xia Shaochan. Little princess, if other people know that you left the mermaid's tears for him, do you know what the consequences will be? Forget it. You won't understand it anyway. Just go back to your cultivation. Inside the sea-quelling painting, Han Fei suddenly opened his eyes. This time, golden light flashed in his eyes. He looked up at the sky and said coldly, I have all kinds of emotions. You want me to forget them? Get lost. Clang. Ha ha ha, hoo. All kinds of sounds were echoing in the sky. However, this time, Han Fei didn't care at all and went straight forward. What was the law of 9 sounds? Laws were just laws, not the great Tao. Son of AB****. In the blink of an eye, the weird sounds were gone. What remained was a ruthless demonic sound that was trying to corrupt him. Han Fei raised his head coldly. Is this the 8th sound? My body is invincible, and my soul is invincible too. In short, I'm invincible and have all kinds of emotions. I'm selfish and greedy. Blast me if you can. Get lost if you can't. Gotcha. Suddenly, the smoke was gone and the sound was gone. Han Fei found that his feet were changing after only a few steps. Above his head, a floating island was hovering in the sky. Looking at the weird arrays below his feet, Han Fei realized something. The arrangement of the stars, the movement of the stars, and the fact that he could go to all kinds of places and even go back in time to see old Han were probably caused by this power. However, he had to admit that the 9 sounds was truly powerful. He had to figure out a way to crack Jiuyin Ling's comfort and nature technique when he had a chance. Otherwise, if Jiuyin Ling really grasped this weird power, she would have to go through 2 stages. The Devil of Forgetfulness and the God of Universal Love. Chapter 943. Finally, I'm here. Han Fei estimated that he wouldn't stay in the 9 sounds array for long. However, Chun Huangyan's words reminded him. The sea-quelling painting was of such a high quality that it might not even be a sea-quelling bizarre treasure, a human holy treasure? Is that a divine weapon above the sea-quelling bizarre treasure? Whoop! Han Fei spread his wings and soared into the sky. He wondered what was going on in this city. Would the person Jiang Qin was looking for be here? After all, according to the sea-quelling painting, there were people in this city. As for who they were, he would have to go up and take a look. This city was not protected by any barriers. It was as plain as the heavenly water village. When Han Fei stood on the floating island, he found that there were birds singing, flowers fragrant, and fertile land. In his field of vision, Han Fei could see the houses, which were as good as his own. Why is the spiritual energy so thin? How can I cultivate with such a concentration of spiritual energy? Han Fei felt different. Although there were all kinds of creatures on this island, the spiritual energy was not enough to support cultivation. By logic, this shouldn't have happened in the sea-quelling painting. The spiritual energy here should be many times denser than the outside world. Han Fei walked along the road to the cottage in his field of vision. After a moment, Han Fei knocked on the door. Is anyone home? In Han Fei's perception, there was someone in the courtyard. A middle-aged woman was watering the flowers in her house. Creak. The wooden door was opened, and the middle-aged woman opened the door. When they met face to face, Han Fei found that this person was younger than he looked. Han Fei could tell at a glance that this woman was a peak-level hidden fisher. Weak? Definitely not. However, she couldn't be very strong. When the woman saw Han Fei, her body trembled slightly. Another person trapped here? Hearing this, Han Fei frowned. What do you mean? How did you get trapped here? The woman was slightly surprised. Aren't you? Han Fei grinned. I walked in openly. Who can trap me? The woman looked at Han Fei rather suspiciously. You walked in? You walked in after listening to the 9 sounds? Han Fei nodded. Yes, who are you? When were you trapped here? How many people are here? The woman suddenly grinned. So what if you walked in? Without enough luck, one would never be able to leave this place. After 7 days, you can only stay here. Han Fei's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? The woman sighed and said, I've been here for more than 300 years. Now everything was dim. Actually, life here was pretty good. Since you're here, feel free to walk around. It's fine if you don't come to this city. You can leave after 7 days. But since I'm here, I won't be able to leave without karmic luck. Han Fei said casually, How can I get luck? The woman smiled faintly. The sea token. If you gather all the luck on the sea token, you might have a chance to subdue this map, but maybe. With that, the woman was about to close the door. Han Fei immediately pressed the wooden door and asked, Senior, where are you from? The woman smiled casually. Me? Jade Fairy Palace. It's been so long that I'm too lazy to think about it. Han Fei quickly asked, Senior, do you know where there are plantations in the city? The woman's eyes suddenly lit up. Are you from the Thug Academy? Han Fei was stunned for a moment. Why? Is our academy so famous? The woman stared at Han Fei for a long time, then finally withdrew her gaze and turned her head slightly. Forget it. It's meaningless to dwell on the past. If you want a plantation, go to the south of the city. With that, the woman closed the door and didn't seem to want to see Han Fei. Han Fei scratched his head. There are indeed people from the Thug Academy here. Immediately, without saying a word, Han Fei leaped into the air and flew to the south of the city. According to the location on the map, he was already in the middle of the west side of the floating island at this moment. The wind god boat drew a red light in the sky. Han Fei saw that many people were looking up. But as he scanned with his perception, he found that many of these people were just ordinary people. Their strength was only at the level of an ordinary fisher. And among these people, he occasionally saw someone who was quite powerful and had reached the level of a hidden fisher or even a peak-level hidden fisher. These people all looked at Han Fei. However, they didn't make any moves, nor did they chase after Han Fei. What were they thinking? This made Han Fei relaxed all the way. No one stopped him, and he flew all the way to the plantation. He was too familiar with the plantation. He knew that as long as they were from the Thug Academy, they couldn't change this habit. Wherever they went, they planted. At least, at this moment, most of the spiritual fruits that Han Fei saw were familiar to him. And a small half should belong to the native species of this sea-quelling painting. In Han Fei's perception, 2 people appeared, a middle-aged man and a young man. At this moment, the 2 were digging the ground. Yes, they were digging with their hands, just like 2 normal people. When Han Fei's perception swept over, the 2 raised their heads and looked over. It seemed that they, who were used to this kind of life, had long lost the habit of perceiving the surroundings. Therefore, when Han Fei came to the yard and his perception swept over them, they looked over. The young man straightened up. This is a new face, isn't it? The middle-aged man nodded. Yes, a new face. If it's someone from the village, we should have met him. It seems that someone from the outside is here. After a while, Han Fei walked along the gap of the plantation all the way to the place where the 2 were digging the soil, and the 2 looked at each other. Han Fei picked a fig from the small tree next to him, peeled off the skin, and stuffed it into his mouth. The process was quite casual. Chomp. Han Fei said lightly, the spiritual energy is not enough, so the taste is not very good. Although it's not ripe, it's a bit astringent. The eyes of the middle-aged man and the young man glowed as they stared at Han Fei. Han Fei suddenly grinned and cupped his hands. I'm Han Fei from the Thug Academy. Nice to meet you, senior uncle and senior brother. The two's eyes widened. Why did someone from the Thug Academy come again? The middle-aged man shouted, "How did you find me?" Han Fei grinned. "With the sea token, I found the underground city, entered the boneyard, entered the sea-quelling painting, won the approval of the 5 legendary creatures, and cracked the 9 sounds array. I'm here." Han Fei felt that his self-introduction was extremely domineering. So, Han Fei thought to himself, look, I've done so many things. Am I awesome? However, the 2 people in front of him didn't show any joy on their faces. The young man said solemnly, "First of all, don't waste your spiritual energy. The spiritual energy here is thin. Once it's exhausted, it's extremely difficult to recover. Secondly, how much luck do you have? In other words, how many sea tokens have you got?" Han Fei grinned. "Well, I've got 3 sea tokens. Senior uncle, senior brother, aren't we going to catch up?" The young man was a little surprised. "You got 3 sea tokens alone?" Han Fei said with a smile. "Actually, I got 2. The other one was given to me by Sister Qin." "Little Qin is here too? How did she get in?" The 2 of them spoke at the same time with a serious look. Han Fei waved his hand and said, "We entered the boneyard. However, only me, Wang Dashuai, and Chu Linyuan entered the sea-quelling painting." The young man directly threw away the tools in his hand and sighed slightly. "Marshall and Chu Linyuan are here too?" The young man immediately looked at Han Fei and quickly said, "And how is little Qin doing outside? Is it dangerous to come here?" Han Fei said leisurely, "Of course it's dangerous. In order to enter the underground city, human beings and sea demons fought a full-scale war. Blue Feather was schemed against by human beings, and in the ancient battlefield, more than 5,000 sea demons died. My sister Qin suffered a lot. Alas, senior brother, why are you grabbing me?" Seeing that the young man's eyes were red, Han Fei was no longer in the mood to make fun of him. He immediately said, "Sister Qin damaged her own cultivation to become a hanging fisher and then cultivated all the way up. Otherwise, Sister Qin wouldn't have been able to get in." The young man immediately clenched his fists, his body trembling slightly. The middle-aged man said, "Yang Xie, don't panic. Little Qin is very talented. Ordinary dangers can't stop her." Yang Xie nodded and tried to calm himself down. The middle-aged man said, "Han Fei, I'm Jiang Chao, Jiang Qin's father. You can call me senior uncle. How is the Thug Academy now? And how is my father?" Han Fei was slightly surprised. In fact, he had always thought that Jiang Qin was only looking for one person, Yang Xie. As for Jiang Chao, Jiang Qin had never mentioned it to him, but Han Fei said, "Same old. He's still half dead. Old Bai is too lazy and greedy. Xiao Zhan and Wenren Yu, the 2 senior uncles, have recruited new students and should be teaching them now. Old Jiang is too greedy. However, he's also here. He should be guarding outside. I guess he's either eating hot pot or braised pork now. We've been involved in the dispute of the sea-quelling painting, and have been fighting every day." Han Fei rambled on, taking out a spiritual fruit and stuffing it into his mouth from time to time, which made Jiang Chao and Yang Xie's eyelids twitch. Yang Xie hurriedly stopped him. "Han Fei is a bit reckless. He's always talking about these things. But when he's happy, he even stuffs spiritual fruits into his mouth." Seeing that Yang Xie stopped him, Han Fei was taken aback and quickly took out a handful of spiritual fruit. "Senior uncle, senior brother, have some too?" Looking at the spiritual fruits, Jiang Chao shook his head slightly. "Han Fei, don't eat spiritual fruits recklessly. This place looks peaceful, but it's actually very dangerous. None of the people who came in have been able to leave. Do you know what I mean?" Han Fei stuffed a handful of spiritual fruits into Yang Xie's arms and smiled at Jiang Chao. "Senior uncle, don't be so polite. I still have thousands of these kinds of spiritual fruit. Don't worry." Jiang Chao was stunned. "Why do you carry so many spiritual fruits with you?" Also, spiritual fruits alone are not enough. This place is also short of energy. Han Fei took out an energy fruit and took a bite. I have thousands of energy fruits too. Jiang Chao, Yang Xie. Chapter 944. Jiang Chao and Yang Xie were both speechless at Han Fei. Why did he carry so many spiritual fruits with him? Han Fei grabbed another handful of energy fruits and gave them to Jiang Chao. Senior uncle, let's not talk about this. It's been more than a day since I entered the sea-quelling painting. Time is running out. You've lived here for so long. Do you know how to control this world? Yang Xie asked in astonishment. You've only been here for more than a day? Han Fei nodded blankly. Yes. It should be more than 2 to 3 hours a day. What's wrong? Yang Xie was stunned and looked a little strange. You said you went to find the 5 legendary creatures. But the time doesn't seem right. Little junior brother, did you miss the time somewhere? Han Fei nodded and said, I was lucky. I met the tree spirit as soon as I came out. Then, I found Earth 9 on the way. As for Water Luster, I didn't go there. It was too far. So, after I met the 4 creatures, I directly broke into the 9 sounds array and came here. With that, Han Fei pointed to the sky and said, It's not noon yet, so I'm sure it's the 2nd day. Yang Xie and Jiang Chao looked at each other. Were all the disciples of the Thug Academy so powerful? Jiang Chao said seriously, Han Fei, you are only an intermediate hidden fisher now, right? Did you break into the 9 sounds array? Jiang Chao was a little suspicious because Han Fei came too fast. Besides, Han Fei's strength didn't seem to match. He wondered if Han Fei was from the Thug Academy. After all, they hadn't been out for so long and didn't know if anything had happened outside. However, he could not figure out what else he and Yang Xie could do at the moment. Based on this, Jiang Chao was actually willing to believe Han Fei. However, just in case, he had to ask Han Fei about the mist of 9 sounds. If he didn't know about the 9th sound, there would be something wrong with Han Fei. After all, one couldn't be too careful. Han Fei claimed that he was from the Thug Academy as soon as he came up and said that he knew someone else, which made him wary. Han Fei smiled and said, Realms are not very accurate. In the end, it still depends on personal strength. Also, the 9th sound is gone, right? There was only the 8th note left. Once the voice of 7 emotions and the voice of supreme forgetfulness are broken, they'll be sent directly to the bottom of the levitating island, so it won't take too long. Hearing that, Jiang Chao couldn't help but sigh. It seemed that he was overthinking. Han Fei could come so fast just because he was extremely talented. Where did the old man find such a student? Jiang Chao looked at Yang Xie and said, If that's the case, let's go to the 1,000-star array. Han Fei asked in surprise, Where is the 1,000-star array? Jiang Chao said, After staying here for so many years, the only thing we can be sure of is that the solution lies in a marvelous formation. However, no one had been able to break the formation since the beginning of the island's existence. Han Fei, do you know what this means? Han Fei asked solemnly, Is this array very difficult? Yang Xie sighed and said, It's not that it's difficult, but nobody can understand it at all. Suddenly, Han Fei noticed that someone was coming from 100 kilometers away. Han Fei asked, Senior uncle, senior brother, are there any enemies in this town? Yang Xie sneered and said, Someone knows that a new round of competition has begun and may be up to no good. Jiang Chao slightly nodded. That's right. A new round of competition has begun, and it's still the disciples of the big clans and sections. They're just trying to block our way. Yang Xie immediately picked up a spiritual fruit and stuffed it into his mouth. Then let's fight our way out. A moment later, about 30 people had come to the plantation. Han Fei and the other 2 stood at the gate and faced those people. Someone walked out and sighed. It's the people from the Thug Academy again. They're here to make trouble. We wouldn't have bothered if it were somebody else, but the Thug Academy is the first to come. Jiang Chao sneered. So, you think you can stop us? The man looked at Jiang Chao calmly. I know that this guy must have spiritual fruits on him. However, we do have some in stock over the years. Jiang Chao, there are only 3 of you. Well, the disciples of the Thug Academy are only intermediate hidden fishers. How can they stop us? Then, a woman dressed in plain clothes walked out. We don't want to fight if we can. Jiang Chao, as long as you don't leave the plantation, we won't fight the next person who comes. Han Fei grinned. Senior uncle, the Thug Academy isn't welcomed here either. Jiang Chao smiled contemptuously. Have we ever been welcomed? But don't be afraid. Just fight. I can beat 10 of them. Don't worry. Yang Xie smiled as well. Your senior brother isn't bad either. Leave these people to us. Han Fei hurriedly said, Hey! Wait. Senior uncle, senior brother, do they have luck? Jiang Chao was slightly taken aback. I forgot to tell you that only 3 people who can appear in this city have passed the Mist of 9 Sound. Those 3 are all from the Heavenly Sword sect, and none of them are here. The others are trapped in the Mist of 9 Sounds. After 7 days, they have to stay here because they are trapped by 9 sounds. Although these people have a little luck, it's not much. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the time to carry on their family line here. They would have gone to study the 1,000-star array. Han Fei's eyes lit up. In other words, they also have luck? Jiang Chao nodded slightly. Everyone has luck. No one is an exception. Han Fei immediately said happily, Senior uncle, how can we deprive them of their luck? Someone laughed and said, Intermediate dangling fisher, do you think you can rob us of our luck? Are all the disciples of the Thug Academy so arrogant now? Han Fei ignored that person and just looked at Jiang Chao. Jiang Chao said, There are 2 ways. Kill them directly to rob them of their luck, but I don't recommend doing this. After all, we've been together for too long. Although we don't get along with these people, their descendants are just ordinary people, and they don't get involved in our grievances. Yang Xie said, For the second method, the winner takes all. It's fine if you win. If you can defeat them completely, you can also rob them of their luck. This is the reward that the winner deserves. Han Fei said in surprise, So simple? The corner of Yang Xie's mouth twitched, thinking, simple? This little junior brother is really brave. Jiang Chao said, Sometimes it's more difficult to hurt them without killing them. Han Fei. Swish. Before Jiang Chao finished speaking, with a swish, Han Fei was already gone. The phantom glass wings spread out and he activated Devil Change. In an instant, Han Fei flashed several times, and golden fist marks swept out. Bam! A person was just about to block it, but he was sent flying 1,000 meters by a punch. His body rolled on the ground, crushing the grass and leaves. Han Fei said, How dare you stop me with only 30 people? I'll crush you today. When Han Fei rushed into the crowd, the law of gravity instantly descended. These 20 people probably didn't expect Han Fei to be so strong, so they didn't think of retreating from the beginning. They thought they could win, so they stayed where they were. However, who could have thought that Han Fei would beat them up so easily? Han Fei didn't fully use the law of gravity. He simply applied gravity, because he didn't want anyone to recognize that he had grasped a law. But even so, he still had a breath's worth of time to attack. Bam! 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 To Jiang Chao and Yang Xie's astonishment, the experts who used to be top heavenly talents were so vulnerable. Whoever was close to Han Fei, even if someone activated a secret technique, was blown away with broken bones. Someone completely unleashed his power and broke the law of gravity. However, Han Fei certainly wouldn't back down. It didn't matter if he had the law of gravity or not. As long as you don't run, I can beat you until you doubt your life, someone roared. Take the energy fruit. Han Fei grinned. Take it now? You really look down on me. Bam! 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 In the short span of 30 breaths, there was not a single person left standing. Han Fei took out an energy fruit and stuffed it into his mouth before he said slowly, "Who else in this world can do this but me? I don't care how many heavenly talents you used to be. You've been running out of spiritual energy for years. Do you think you can stop me with a few energy fruits and spiritual energy fruits? Isn't that a bit ridiculous?" Jiang Chao and Yang Xie were both dumbfounded. Is he really a disciple of the Thug Academy? Yang Xie was stunned for a long time before he said, "Master, junior brother, is that the wings of the wind god Pearl?" Dumbfounded too, Jiang Chao replied in a daze, "Probably. Probably." At this moment, the 30 people who were lying on the ground were all shocked. Had something happened in the outside world? Were the people nowadays already so powerful to such an extent? Although they didn't dare to carry out their full strength, they were still more than 30 peak-level hidden fishers. Each of them could collapse a mountain with one punch. Yet, they were all lying on the ground after being punched by this guy? In the distance, those who had lived here for too long and didn't want to participate in the battle were all dumbfounded. This generation of people from the Thug Academy was so reckless. They started fighting the moment they disagreed. They knocked down so many people for a tiny bit of luck? Han Fei looked into the distance and grinned. Who else wants to stop me? The people on the ground slowly climbed to their feet. Their expressions were extremely ugly. Han Fei said in surprise, "Huh? You're quite sturdy. You've risen so quickly after taking a punch from me?" Lost for words, Jiang Chao simply said, "It's impossible to cultivate here. They can only absorb a small amount of energy and slowly polish their body. So, their bodies are much stronger than most people in the outside world." Han Fei understood. Unfortunately, they were only slightly stronger, not ridiculously so. Even if they had powerful body tempering techniques, they didn't have enough energy to cultivate them. So, Han Fei still didn't think much of them. In the crowd, someone said, "Hee hee. It seems that the Thug Academy has recruited a good disciple. However, how much luck do we have? 30 of us together can't even compare to half of the Sea Token's luck. Do you think you can control this world after defeating us?" Han Fei snorted and said, "That's none of your business." Jiang Chao laughed. Good, good. The Thug Academy has recruited a good student. Han Fei, let's go. I'll show you the 1,000-star array. Yang Xie heaved a sigh. I'm afraid that I'll have to give up my position as the best heavenly talent of the Thug Academy. Chapter 945. This time, Jiang Chao and Yang Xie seemed to be more confident. They seemed to see the hope of getting out. Jiang Chao said, Han Fei, don't rush. Let's walk there. Han Fei exclaimed and hurriedly said, Senior uncle, it's me. Time is running out. Yang Xie smiled and said, Junior brother, don't worry. The 1,000-star array will only be fully activated at night. In the daytime, there was no way to do anything. The reason why I'm walking is to bring you to obtain some blessings. Han Fei was dumbfounded. Bless what? Yang Xie smiled and said, A person's luck is invisible and undetectable. Just as those people said, except for the 3 people from the Sky Sword sect, the luck of all the other people on the floating island combined was probably not as good as the luck of a sea token. But besides luck, there are also blessings. Han Fei was slightly stunned. Then what is this blessing? Yang Xie said, Junior brother, you should know that there is an opportunity to become a king in the sea-quelling painting. But do you know how to be a king? Han Fei shook his head. Yang Xie said, Of course, you can become a monarch if you improve your strength and try to break through to the monarch realm. However, there was another way, and that was to make others believe that you could become a king. Kings were worshipped and respected by tens of thousands of people. Similarly, a king needs to have the spirit that a king should have. Jiang Chao smiled. Han Fei, do you know why there are statues of the sea god in all the villages and towns? Han Fei asked in confusion, Is it to make people worship her? Jiang Chao slightly nodded. That's also our speculation, because there is also a statue here, and that statue is that of a man. A man? Han Fei took a deep breath. In the heavenly water village and the blue sea town, all the statues he saw were female. How could there be a man? Seeing Han Fei's reaction, Jiang Chao smiled and said, "That's exactly why we speculate that the sea god we worship is not necessarily a real god. It was possible that he was only a king realm expert. There were many experts in the king realm. The kings you see in different places are also different." Han Fei asked in shock, "The sea god is fake?" Jiang Chao said, "It's just our speculation. If the sea god was fake, then who was she? Why did she erect so many statues for thousands of people to worship?" Han Fei took a deep breath. "She needs people's wishes? Power of will." Both Jiang Chao and Yang Xie were stunned for a moment. Then they said, "Wish power sounds better than blessing. Yes, our guess is that he needs people's wishes. And this kind of power is formless, invisible, and untouchable." Han Fei blurted out, "So, what should I do?" Jiang Chao grinned. "Let's see if we can snatch the power of faith. First, we need to get the approval of the people on this floating island." Yang Xie said, "Junior brother, you might have to pretend to be strong and show that you're different from the others on this floating island. If it's not necessary, it's better not to hurt people." Han Fei scratched his head and thought to himself, "Isn't she asking me to show off?" He had spent so much effort just to come to this godforsaken place to act tough? Han Fei took a breath and asked, "Then, how should I do it?" Jiang Chao said, "First of all, you have to make it clear that you are here to save everyone from this world. You are here to save them." Han Fei's lips twitched. "Do you think they will believe me? After all, those ordinary people have strong parents too, don't they?" Jiang Chao smiled. "It's different. They have strong seniors, but they don't have the ability. Besides, they have lived here for so long and haven't been able to get out. But you are different. You are an outsider, and you are the only one who arrived here first. So, you are new to them and they have never seen you before. Anyway, you only have 6 days. If you get the sea-quelling painting in 6 days, you will be able to save them. They won't be stingy with their power of faith. If you can't save them in 6 days, it won't matter to you. At most, you will fail." Yang Xie grinned. "At most, you will become a liar. It's not a big problem." Han Fei, after a moment. Jiang Chao said, "Han Fei, are you ready?" Han Fei nodded solemnly. He hadn't become a king yet, but he was already prepared to be admired. This feeling was a bit weird. This was the market of the floating island. How many generations had it been here? Anyway, there were actually a lot of people here. In total, there were hundreds of people in his perception. Come to think of it, the first batch of people who came in must have fallen in love with each other, and then they all had children. There must be a lot of in-laws here. In any case, it was not easy to create so many descendants with just a few dozen or 100 people. At this moment, Han Fei saw a group of young boys in linen clothes craning their heads at him. There were also some teenagers who were brazenly crowding around to watch. Someone asked, "Uncle Jiang, who is this person?" A little girl asked timidly, "Uncle Yang, who is he?" Yang Xie nudged Han Fei slightly. Han Fei thought to himself, "Is it time for my performance?" Han Fei stomped on the ground and flew 10 meters into the sky, unfolding the phantom glass wings. Yang Xie murmured, "The wind god pearl. This is something that no one has seen before. It's indeed beautiful." Wow. A large group of children chased after Han Fei. Someone shouted, "Why are his wings different from my grandma's?" A child was curious. "His wings are even more beautiful than my grandma's." A little girl said enviously, "What beautiful wings!" Even the adults couldn't help but be stunned at this moment. It was the first time that they had seen such translucent, glass-like wings. Han Fei roared, "Children, today I, Han Fei, have crossed mountains and seas, as well as crowds of people. Today I stand here to take you out. I'll take you out of this world and take you through the fog and darkness. Stop bragging. No one has ever gone out of this place. Someone scolded, indicating that he didn't believe what Han Fei said at all. He also warned the children, don't listen to him. So many people have come, but none of them left. He will be left here. However, what did those children know? At this moment, there was nothing but envy in their eyes. Little gold appeared and flew and hovered in the sky. With a thought from Han Fei, little gold soared to the sky. A child shouted, "Big bird!" Someone was confused. What's that? A former cultivator walked out and roared, "It's just a contractual spiritual beast. Why are you making such a fuss?" However, hardly had he finished speaking when a giant bird with a wingspan of almost 100 meters swooped down. Someone shouted, "Wow, what a huge bird!" Someone exclaimed, "Is a contractual spiritual beast that can fly so awesome?" However, the experts here were all knowledgeable enough to know that it wasn't a bird. It had wings, but it wasn't a wind sky wing. It should be a legendary creature at least. Some even suspected that it might be a legendary creature if it wasn't a bird. Han Fei leaped and stood on Little Gold's head. Hovering in the sky, he said in a deafening voice, "The sea of bitterness is boundless. Repent and you will be saved. My name is Han Fei, and I'm here to bring you out of the sea of bitterness. I guarantee with my legendary contractual spiritual beast that I'll break this world for you in 6 days." Many people's expressions changed greatly. Was it really a legendary creature? Many experts looked at each other in bewilderment. How could an intermediate hidden fisher have a legendary creature? That was something that only existed in legends. For a moment, a lot of people walked out of their houses and looked up at the sky. Although it was a shocking scene, many people were actually disdainful. Someone shook his head. "The Thug Academy always likes these fancy tricks," someone sneered. "They'll reveal their true colors in 6 days." Someone sneered. Back then, all the people who came here were heavenly talent. They were all trapped here. Didn't 2 people from the Thug Academy get trapped here too? Stop bragging! Han Fei roared. "The spiritual energy in this place is thin. Since you're new here, I'll give you a piece of good luck." Han Fei extended his hand and captured a dragon from the void. Water gathered into the shape of a dragon. Han Fei pointed his finger, and surging spiritual energy gathered on the dragon. For a moment, the water dragon was brimming with spiritual energy. Yang Xie's lips twitched. "Master, do you think little junior brother is always like this outside? It doesn't look like his first time doing this." Jiang Chao also had mixed feelings. "I don't think so. Who are you trying to impress by doing all these fancy things outside?" Yang Xie said unhurriedly, "What if he gets Master Jiang's heritage?" Stunned, Jiang Chao slightly nodded. "It's possible." As he spoke, Han Fei clenched his fist, and the water dragon exploded and water droplets splashed. The water droplets full of spiritual energy turned into raindrops that floated in the air and fell in front of the ordinary people. Jiang Chao and Yang Xie felt sorry to see this. Jiang Chao said, "He consumed almost 500,000 points of spiritual energy this time. This kid is quite a spendthrift." Yang Xie said with a smile, "That's because little junior brother has a lot of spiritual energy." After the ordinary people sensed the spiritual energy, Han Fei roared, "Drink up this drop of water. It will improve your physique." After all, they were all the descendants of strong masters. Was it spiritual energy? Everyone could tell that it was spiritual energy. What Han Fei made was just a diluted spiritual spring. If ordinary people drank it, it would naturally be beneficial to their health. The children were very excited. Someone shouted, "I've become stronger." A little girl jumped up and down. "I can see further." Someone stood up and looked at Jiang Chao and Han Fei. "After such a long time, all you got is some spiritual spring? What's the purpose of the Thug Academy?" Han Fei said with a smile, "It's just a gift. I hope you can give me your sincere blessings. After all, if no one knows that I've taken this world, there will be no one who will thank me, right? Someone was tempted. In any case, Han Fei was their hope. They couldn't count on themselves. However, if Han Fei could take the sea-quelling painting, he wouldn't dare to kill them. Otherwise, it wasn't like he didn't have a backer. Someone said lightly, "If you really have the ability to take the sea-quelling painting and let us out, we will all thank you." Suddenly, a child said, "Big brother, I wish you success." A little girl said childishly, "Haha, big brother, I also wish you success." After a moment, a large group of people followed Han Fei to the center of the village. Han Fei said to him via voice transmission, "Senior uncle, I don't feel any change." Jiang Chao said, "This is just a guess. The power of faith can't be found. Now, it's just giving you an extra guarantee. As for whether the guarantee is useful or not, I don't know yet." In fact, Han Fei kind of believed it. That was a rare thing in itself. Why did the statue exist? No one knew about this. What if this was really a way to become a king? After a while, Han Fei came to a large circular lake in the middle of the floating island. This lake was about 3,000 meters in diameter, as if drawn by a compass. And in front of the lake there was indeed a male statue. However, this statue didn't hold a fishing rod in his hand, but a long sword in front of him, which was completely different from the sea god statues that Han Fei knew. And Han Fei's mouth was twitching at this moment. "Isn't this old Han?" He was immediately dumbfounded. Old Han had been here and left? Han Fei didn't look too surprised. What was there to be surprised about at this point? Ren Tianfei even followed him in. Looking around the round lake, there were 3 people sitting cross-legged on the ground in a triangular formation, looking at Han Fei. Chapter 946. As for the villagers, they stopped not far away from the statue, not intending to move forward. Behind them, someone said in a low voice, "Do you think a newcomer from the Thug Academy can crack the secret of the 1,000-star array?" Someone shook his head. "It's impossible. How can he crack the 1,000-star array unless he has 99 sea tokens all by himself?" Someone remarked, "I hope he can crack it. I really don't want to stay in this place anymore. The spiritual energy here is so thin that I can't even cultivate." While everybody was sighing, Han Fei stood by the lake, and the 3 experts of the Heavenly Sword sect rose at the same time. Someone asked, "Jiang Chao, who is he?" Jiang Chao smiled. "Can't you see it for yourself?" A woman among the 3 said indifferently, "Are you here to steal the sea-quelling painting?" Yang Xie sneered. "Why? You don't want to? You've been here for so long. What have you seen?" Jiang Chao smiled. "You're not qualified anymore?" Someone said coldly, "We're not qualified, but does this boy who just came in qualify?" Han Fei smiled casually. "Why don't you see if I'm qualified or not?" Swish! A sword flashed, and it was so fast that it couldn't be seen by the naked eye. It charged at Han Fei. However, Han Fei instantly used the draw technique. The knife aura glowed with golden light and cut the sword aura to the end. The invincible knife aura slashed at the man. Clang, clang, clang. The man's pupils constricted, and he finally blocked Han Fei's draw technique with 3 weird sword auras in a row. However, what made him look awful was that in order to block Han Fei's attack, he consumed 70% of his spiritual energy. How terrifying was this attack? The man immediately became solemn. If they were in the outside world, they might be able to fight Han Fei. However, in this place, it was already an incredible thing to maintain the abundance of spiritual energy. Han Fei's attack wasn't something they could bear. The disciple of the Heavenly Sword sect said emotionlessly, "Even if you didn't use all your spiritual energy, you've used at least 70% of it. How many more attacks can you make?" Swish! Another saber radiance slashed out, tearing through the air. The female heavenly talent of the Heavenly Sword sect didn't expect Han Fei to be so arrogant. He didn't hesitate at all when he said he would do it. 3,000 swords. The surging sword flow was like a tide, and it was exactly the same as the 3,000 swords that Wu Ming performed. Han Fei put on a disdainful smile. I have inexhaustible spiritual energy. The last one, do you still want to try? The third disciple of the Heavenly Sword sect had an ugly expression on his face. He could feel that the spiritual energy in Han Fei's body was surging. Did Han Fei only need a little spiritual energy to launch such a terrifying attack? Jiang Chao and Yang Xie also looked at him in surprise. They had all witnessed the power of the sword-drawing technique. But even so, there was no reason for him to slash so many times, right? Han Fei said domineeringly, after you go out, ask the disciples of the 7 major sects who I haven't beaten before. Not to mention the fact that you only have 3 people, even if I give you 30 people, so what? If you know what's good for you, retreat. The woman said coldly, if it wasn't for the fact that the spiritual qi here has dried up, how could I allow you to show off your power? Han Fei was disdainful and spread out his hands. Here are 3 spiritual energy fruits and 3 energy fruit. I'll give you a chance. Take it to replenish your spirit qi and energy, and then fight me to the death. Do you dare? Yang Xie couldn't help but grin. This junior brother is quite domineering. But why do I like this so much? Jiang Chao couldn't help but put on a smug smile and said unhurriedly, this is an opportunity for you. If you don't want to fight Han Fei, you can fight me or Yang Xie. Do you dare? The 3 heavenly talents of the Heavenly Sword sect looked at each other. Although Han Fei had just come in, the other party had already entered this place after all. Considering that Han Fei could slash twice in a row, judging from the knife light just now, he couldn't be weak at all. Also, Han Fei was the first to arrive at the village. He was probably the strongest one among the people who came for the sea-quelling painting this time. The last heavenly talent of the Heavenly Sword sect said indifferently, okay. Since you can pass through the 9 shadows mist safely, let's see if you can unlock this 1,000-star array. With a flip of his hand, Han Fei used the draw technique again with the blood-drinking knife and slashed at this person. The knife intent was awe-inspiring, bright, and gorgeous. Immediately, this person hurriedly drew out his sword. 2 sword tides barely shattered Han Fei's draw technique. This person's face was cold. What do you mean? Han Fei looked at the 3 of them and said, I heard that the 3 of you from the Heavenly Sword sect have all passed through the 9 sounds mist. He definitely had a bit of luck on him. Now I'll defeat you and borrow your luck. Do you have a problem with that? The reason why Han Fei attacked again was that these 3 people were all very cold, like 3 robots. Behind the statue, many people were dumbfounded. What Han Fei showed was strong, strong, and strong. Everyone knew that these 3 people were all top masters. But now, the 3 top masters were defeated by a newcomer with 3 slashes. Such a gorgeous reality made everyone in the village fall into contemplation. And this scene, in the eyes of those ordinary people and many children, was completely different. This guy was 2F** King strong. Even someone at the level of Ancestor was easily defeated. Jiang Chao's heart also trembled. He had been trapped here for many years. If Han Fei was his opponent, even he wouldn't be able to take such 3 slashes. Yang Xie's eyes flickered. Little junior brother, what path are you on? You're so powerful and domineering. Is it? Jiang Chao said, invincible? Han Fei grinned. Junior uncle, senior brother, you're really knowledgeable. Immediately, the 2 of them rolled their eyes. They were really blind. They had never seen anyone walking the path of invincibility in their life. Where did the Thug Academy find such a monster? They actually found a student walking the path of invincibility. However, this time, both Jiang Chao and Yang Xie seemed to see hope. The path of invincibility. If even the terrifying talent of the path of invincibility couldn't collect the sea-quelling painting, what kind of strong master could collect it? At night, the sun sank. Above the sky, the star map reappeared. Jiang Chao said, Han Fei, look carefully. The star map is imprinted in this lake. Yang Xie said, "Little junior brother, this star position is weird. It doesn't look like an array. After years of research, we can see 36 different star position combinations in this lake." Han Fei said, "Junior uncle, senior brother, let me think about it first." When they were outside, Han Fei and Ren Tianfei had already studied it. There were more than 36 star position maps. Han Fei even saw the shadow of the 28 constellations and the prototype of the 5 elements and 8 diagrams. Jiang Chao and Yang Xie didn't disturb him. Since Han Fei said so, they were willing to believe him and felt that Han Fei might be somewhat confident. In fact, Han Fei was at a loss. Flying in the sky, he was observing carefully. In the water, the arrangement of the star positions was opposite. At this moment, from Han Fei's position, there was a star position map imprinted in the center of the water. This map was made up of as many as 80 visible stars. Han Fei drew for a long time with his fingers, but he couldn't find anything. He tried to transform spiritual energy into an array, but it didn't work at all. "Let me try another position." Han Fei changed his angle. Sure enough, the central star position map changed again. It was a set of 93 visible stars. He tried all kinds of methods, but none of them worked. Time passed minute by minute. 3 hours later, Yang Xie finally couldn't help but ask, "Junior brother, what did you find?" Han Fei said, "Senior brother, don't be hasty. Let me take a look." At this moment, Han Fei was looking for the star that Ren Tianfei pointed out. However, no matter how hard he looked, he couldn't find it. The star didn't seem to be among them. These star position maps were rather messy. There were so many stars around, but it wasn't impossible to find it. After all, he could see it at a glance when he was looking at it on the sea-quelling painting. After repeated checks, Han Fei was very sure that the star wouldn't be imprinted in the water. Originally, Han Fei wondered if he could fish the moon out of the water. What if it worked? But in fact, they didn't even give him a chance to fish the moon out. The star was not reflected in the water. Did he really have to go to the sky to get it? Han Fei felt that it was ridiculous. He couldn't fly to the sky at all. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Senior uncle, senior brother, have you found that there is one less star in the water than in the sky?" Jiang Chao was lost for words. "Han Fei, are your eyes deceiving you? There are so many stars in the sky. How can you tell that one is missing?" Yang Xie frowned and said, "Little junior brother, did you notice something? Did you discover which star is missing?" What should Han Fei say? There was a starry sky in the sky. His finger could only point out the approximate position, but he couldn't clearly point out the star. However, the star would change color. Should he tell them? Han Fei thought for a moment and decided not to. Even if they knew which one was missing, what could they do? Han Fei couldn't help but say, "Maybe I was wrong. Hey, senior uncle, senior brother, you've been here for so many years. Have you ever seen anyone fly into the sky? The kind that can fly very, very high?" Jiang Chao shook his head. "No. As long as you get on this floating island, you can't leave even if you want to. At the beginning, everyone tried to leave from the sky. But after rising more than 2,000 meters into the sky, you will encounter a barrier and can't go up at all." Han Fei nodded slightly. "Let me think about it." Han Fei used the process of elimination. If the 5 star positions of the 5 elements corresponded to the 5 legendary masters, then what did the thing he saw that was similar to the 8 diagrams correspond to? Chapter 947. None of the 36 known star maps were actually of any use. Han Fei had tried every one of them, and even changed a weird angle to reveal the position of the red star. Although he couldn't see it, he wouldn't lose a piece of flesh. Of course, Han Fei didn't get anything. The heavenly talents of the Heavenly Sword sect were dumbfounded by his action. As for those ordinary people, they had already gone home to sleep. Only the strong masters were still paying attention to Han Fei. After another hour, Han Fei finally found the 8 diagrams formation in a large pile of stars. It was impossible for Han Fei to study the 8 diagrams. This thing was very complicated. He was just curious. Was the appearance of this pattern a coincidence or an inevitability? It stood to reason that Ren Tianfei had probably done what he had just done. Otherwise, Ren Tianfei wouldn't have given up. Han Fei suddenly froze. Wait. If he couldn't get out of this floating island, how did Ren Tianfei get out back then? As the first possessor of the sea-quelling painting, Ren Tianfei should have heard of the 5 legendary creatures and the Great Way's 9 sounds. In this case, how could he get out of here? There must be a way out. Ren Tianfei, why didn't you tell me such an important thing? Suddenly, when Han Fei was lost in thought, a voice abruptly appeared. It seems that you've figured out the key to the problem. Suddenly, Jiang Chao and Yang Xie turned their heads, only to see a person they didn't know suddenly appear here. Not only Jiang Chao and Yang Xie were surprised, but everyone who was paying attention to this place opened their mouths in surprise. When did this person come? Only Han Fei let out a sigh of relief and shook his head helplessly. Why didn't you tell me when we were outside? Ren Tianfei rolled his eyes and said, At that time, I didn't even know whether you could pass the mist of 9 sounds or not. What was the point of telling you? Haven't you found the problem now? Jiang Chao frowned and said, Han Fei, who is this? Han Fei looked around and directly formed a formation in the air. After a while, a large soundproof formation appeared, enveloping them in it. Han Fei looked at Ren Tianfei and said, Old Ren, are you okay with my junior uncle and senior brother? Ren Tianfei smiled in disdain. What's there to hide? Han Fei immediately said, Senior uncle, senior brother. He is the first owner of the sea-quelling painting, Ren Tianfei. Buzz. Jiang Chao and Yang Xie were both unsteady. Jiang Chao immediately became solemn. Venerable? Obviously, Jiang Chao seemed to know something, which was why he was shocked. Yang Xie was the same. It was the first time he'd seen an Exalt Realm expert, so how could he not be moved? Most importantly, why would an Exalt Realm expert be with his little junior brother? Moreover, why would the Venerable One appear here at this moment? Ren Tianfei ignored them and looked at Han Fei. Do you want to ask me how I got out? Han Fei nodded. Not bad. Ren Tianfei smiled. Then you have to ask me how I got in. The 9 notes of the heavenly law were extremely terrifying. I tried to reach the 8th note and failed. Do you understand the meaning of forgetting emotions? Aren't you talking about fish? If I could really achieve the supreme indifference, what would be the point of having a high or low cultivation base? Han Fei said angrily. Then why didn't you tell me before? Ren Tianfei waved his hand and said, What if you didn't want to? Besides, didn't you know it when you were chatting with the 5 legendary figures? Why would I bother to tell you? Han Fei thought to himself, should I be wary of this old man too? Alas, I'm so tired. Han Fei said, Wait, how did you get in? Your real body is not here. Ren Tianfei smiled. Puppets. I have a soul secret treasure that wraps a wisp of my soul. As for the puppet, I leave a wisp of my soul at the mercy of the 9 note. After I pass the 9 notes, I will protect the main soul with a secret treasure and come out to destroy the ruined souls. Then I'll pass the mist of the 9 notes, won't I? Jiang Chao and Yang Xie looked at each other in bewilderment. Han Fei opened his mouth. This old man seems to be quite smart. However, it didn't seem easy to do this. First of all, you have to separate 2 souls and a soul secret treasure. Finally, you have to destroy another soul with one. It seems quite complicated. Han Fei said, So, how did your real body get in before? How did you get out? Ren Tianfei asked back, How did you get in? Didn't I give you the sacrificing punch? Can't you see how I got in? Han Fei couldn't help but be a little surprised. The sacrificing punch was even stronger than the previous art of invincibility. And he came in with the heart of invincibility. Did Rin Tianfei? Han Fei asked in surprise. Old Rin, are you also on the path of invincibility? Rin Tianfei said grumpily. The 9 notes is just a law after all. Just because you're on the path of invincibility doesn't mean that other roads are impossible. The venerable realm of human beings is actually the same as the sea demon's Tao. I didn't come in until I had the path of invincibility in my heart. Han Fei took a breath. Ah, isn't it so demanding? Then how did the 3 of them get in? Han Fei was referring to the 3 people from the Heavenly Sword sect. Rin Tianfei said, swordsmen are ruthless. Of course, they have abandoned their emotions and have reached the grand oblivion realm. Their hearts are dead. Whether they are alive or dead, it's the same. They are just like 3 puppets. Hearing what Rin Tianfei said, it seemed to be true. Han Fei couldn't help but click his tongue. These swordsmen are really ruthless. They're so ruthless to themselves. Can someone really accept the idea of abandoning their emotions and desires? Han Fei took a breath. Then how did you get out? Ren Tianfei said, when I got the sea-quelling painting, I could actually break out of this place by force. The seal here can't trap venerables. However, I'm here to find an opportunity to become a venerable, and the opportunity is in this lake. I thought hard for a long time but couldn't figure it out. However, I also found the problem when I stood in the position where you are standing now. With that said, Ren Tianfei couldn't help but exclaim, my cheap disciple is really not an ordinary person. It only took him 1 night to stand in this position. Han Fei asked blankly, what's wrong with my position? Ren Tianfei said with a smile, this is a position where you can go out. Have you found that the star positions here are a bit similar to the terrain arrangement in the Mist of 9 Sounds? Hearing Ren Tianfei's words, Han Fei looked at the star positions again and asked in surprise, you mean? Ren Tianfei nodded. Yes. Star displacement transposition, unpredictable and unpredictable. But Ren Tianfei continued, but your purpose of coming here is not to go out, but to get the opportunity to become a venerable. So, it's useless to know how to get out. You have to know how to get that opportunity, right? Han Fei said, Old Ren, you were lucky enough to find this position. Why didn't you get that opportunity? Ren Tianfei said with a faint smile, how do you know I can't get it? Taking a breath, Han Fei pointed at Ren Tianfei and said, okay. You were the one who said it outside. If you could get it, you would have done it a long time ago. Ren Tianfei sneered. If I didn't say so, would I tell you how to get it? Do you want me to deliver the opportunity to you? Jiang Chao and Yang Xie were both dumbfounded. Why did it sound so weird to watch the drama? Why does it sound like Ren Tianfei could have taken this opportunity away? Ren Tianfei snorted. It's not that I don't want to take it, but when I got to that point, I suddenly found a problem. That opportunity doesn't belong to me. Han Fei was stunned. Doesn't belong to you? Could it be that this opportunity belonged to someone else? Does it belong to me? Ren Tianfei laughed. Maybe. Han Fei was dumbfounded. I don't King know anything. Why does it belong to me? Ren Tianfei said, okay, you've found the key point. You have to continue with your training. Now that things have come to this, you can think about it yourself. With that, Ren Tianfei sat on the ground, waiting to see how Han Fei was going to continue. Jiang Chao and Yang Xie also looked at Han Fei. Although they were confused, they had heard the general idea. They didn't care whether they could get the opportunity to become a venerable or not. What they cared about now was the identity of this new student of the Thug Academy. Han Fei frowned and looked at the map. This was not exactly the 8 diagrams. It was probably a weird array of star displacement transposition, which coincided with the 8 diagrams. In this area of stars, Han Fei observed for a full hour before he found that in this map, some of the positions of stars were shaking slightly. He counted and found that there were a total of 15 shaking stars. As the sky grew brighter, the positions of the stars also moved. However, Han Fei tapped his feet and tried to grab the 15 shaking stars. As Han Fei grabbed them, he suddenly disappeared from the surface of the lake. Jiang Chao and Yang Xie jumped to their feet when they saw that. As for the group of people who were spying in the dark, almost all of them ran over with a look of shock on their faces. Someone exclaimed, "Has this guy found the way out?" Someone was excited. "Can we go out now?" Someone had tears in his eyes. Son of AB****, after staying in this damn place for so long, can we finally go out? Ren Tianfei said angrily, "Stop. If you want to go out, just wait." Jiang Chao shouted, "If anyone interferes with the students of my academy to pick the opportunities, don't blame me for disregarding our friendship as neighbors and killing them." Yang Xie also stepped forward. "Whoever dares to disturb us will be killed." Chapter 948. In the midst of 9 sounds, Chao Jiaran was walking forward step by step, her face expressionless. For the children of the big clans, they more or less knew some of the secrets of the sea-quelling painting. After all, countless seniors had been defeated for this painting. They didn't know much about the 5 legends, because this was a test that everyone took for granted. If they couldn't even pass this test, why would they want to go through the mist of 9 sounds? Chao Jiaran, who had just been to 5 places, had already come to the mist of 9 sounds. The sound of 7 emotions was actually not a big problem for her. Chao Jiaran had been indifferent since she was a child. Similar to Luo Xiaobai, she was an absolutely rational person. She was different from Chao Tian. Chao Tian had a strong heart, but he was very emotional, such as Chao Qiu. Chao Jiaran was really not afraid of the sound of 7 emotions. If she encountered the 8th sound, this girl was likely to choose to accept the Grand Wang Qing Dao. However, just when she easily passed through the sound of 7 emotions, she found that her position suddenly changed and she came to the depths of an empty valley in the sea-quelling painting. And in front of her was her old enemy who was competing for the sea-quelling painting. Chao Jiaran looked at Han Fei lightly. An illusion? Han Fei was a little confused. He just felt that the scattered and shaking stars didn't seem to match the 8 diagrams. That was why he chose to try fishing. As a result, he found himself in an empty valley. And opposite him was the woman he didn't like, Chao Jiaran. Han Fei murmured, "I see. The so-called 8 diagrams and star transposition are for me to seize luck. It seems that if I want to control this world, I have to get the luck of others." Hearing Chao Jiaran's question, Han Fei smiled. "You don't want to try the illusion? Come on, beat me, and you can walk through the mist of 9 sounds." Chao Jiaran frowned slightly. Not an illusion? After confirming this fact, the flute on Chao Jiaran's waist automatically flew to her mouth. Woo! A strange melody resounded in this empty valley. It sounded like crying, like the roar of ghosts and gods, and like a weird sound from the depths of hell. The scene in front of Han Fei changed, and the space of the entire empty valley seemed to be distorted. One after another, strange things that looked like undead creatures appeared and pounced at him from the void. Voila! The phantom glass wings were unfurled. Han Fei moved slightly and sneered. "Even the 9 sounds can't do anything to me. What about your illusions?" Rip. Han Fei seemed to be bathed in a layer of golden light. A pair of spiritual energy hands slapped down from the sky, and the demons and ghosts in front of them scattered in an uproar before this resplendent golden light. And this strange environment was directly torn apart by the void hand. In the next scene, Han Fei saw that Chao Jiaran's mouth was bleeding, but her expression remained unchanged. Chao Jiaran stared at him coldly. "Have you embarked on the path of the strong?" Han Fei chuckled. "You found out? However, since you've made your move, it's my turn now." Whoosh! The moment Han Fei flashed out, he thought that this woman was not simple and he'd better kill her. Otherwise, it would be a problem in the future. Bang, bang, bang. However, to Han Fei's surprise, Chao Jiaran, who had always looked like a fairy, made a fist mark at this moment. Her terrifying power was even comparable to Chao Tian's. However, would Han Fei be afraid of a fist mark? Han Fei was just a little surprised. Chao Jiren turned out to be a soul warrior who had hidden her strength very well. No one would have thought of this, right? The invincible fist mark blasted out. In an instant, hundreds of fist marks bombarded each other in the void. The rocks crumbled and the sound was shaking. Although the Chao family's fist mark seemed to be very strong, it was still weaker than the invincible fist mark. This was not determined by the level of the technique, but by the different paths that different people took. 10 minutes later, the two figures were moving quickly, as if flashing, directly from the bottom of the valley to the top of the mountain. Han Fei was about to slap Chao Jiren to death, when he saw that Chao Jiren suddenly made a seal in her hand. Han Fei had seen this seal before. It was a divine weapon seal, and it was of a very high quality. At this moment, the seal turned into a heavenly fist mark. In Han Fei's eyes, the remaining punch was a sure hit. The 100-meter-long fist mark phantom seemed to be going to blow up the entire valley. "Is this your final trump card?" Swish. Snowmorn appeared in Han Fei's hand. In the face of this high-quality or ultra-quality divine weapon, Han Fei was still lacking in pure strength even if he didn't use his sea-quelling bizarre treasure. So he had to use Snowmorn. This also made Han Fei exclaim that no one who could reach this step was weak. Draw the sword, swish. A flash of light seemed to flash between heaven and earth. In just an instant, the spiritual energy in Han Fei's body was instantly drained, causing him to stagger slightly. The sword light cut the fist mark, the mountain rocks exploded, and the fist mark was pushed to the ground. In the distance, a few eyes were cast over. On the jade pen peak, in the thatched cottage, the punishing saber trembled slightly. Noticing the sword light, it said in a low voice, "Although it's just a sword light, it's full of knife intent. This boy is not bad." Above the West Sea, a big bird came out of the water and stared at the void. When the sword light slashed down from the sky, its eyes gradually turned from frost to normal. "Humph, not bad. No wonder you dare to break into the mist of 9 sounds instead of coming to me." In the eastern fire forest, flames were boiling and a low voice was laughing. Lu Shan, who stayed here, couldn't help but wonder what happened. Why is the powerful spirit of the fire seed laughing? Kacha! Clang! The fist mark collapsed, and the big seal flew across the sky, trying to block it, but was smashed away by Han Fei's sword. The cold sword intent swept across the big seal and swept at Chao Jiren. The seal was a good seal, and the sword was also a good sword. But the two of them were not qualified to use the full power of these two weapons now. Therefore, it was impossible for Snowmorn to break this big seal. But at the moment when the sword light swept at Chao Jiren, when Chao Jiren felt the crisis of death, and when Han Fei's void lines were about to catch her, Chao Jiren disappeared? Han Fei frowned. Where is she? In the mist of 9 sounds. Chao Jiren's body suddenly fell to the ground, her white clothes were stained with blood, and she vomited a large mouthful of blood. In Chao Jiren's memory, that sword light tore the sky and the earth apart. It was extremely terrifying. In the end, it was the mist of 9 sounds that saved her life. Chao Jiren couldn't help but tremble. Others might not know, but she knew what level her seal was. An ultra-quality divine weapon was broken by a sword strike? Chao Jiren was a little shocked. Freeze. See. Strange. Treasure. Han Fei's figure also disappeared at the same time. When Han Fei appeared again, he looked around and found that he had appeared on the 8 diagrams star position map and returned to the lake in the village. As soon as Han Fei appeared, Jiang Chao immediately said excitedly, "Han Fei, how did it go?" Yang Xie also looked happy. "Little junior brother, did you get the opportunity?" Han Fei shook his head slightly, took out an energy fruit, stuffed it into his mouth, glanced at Ren Tianfei and said slowly, "I'm not qualified to get the opportunity yet. I'm going to snatch luck." Snatch luck? Han Fei grinned. "Senior uncle, senior brother, it's going to be dawn in less than an hour. Let's talk about it after dawn. With that, Han Fei stuffed another energy fruit into his mouth, sat cross-legged for more than 10 minutes, and got up again. His body moved slightly, and he stepped onto the 8 diagrams star position map again, randomly chose a star, and grabbed it with one hand. It's tough. This mist of 9 sounds. It's too deceptive. However, fortunately, I've survived the sound of sorrow. Qing Chun struggled to get up from the ground. Among the 9 sounds, there were only 2 that were the most difficult for him. One was the grand emotionless sound, and the other was the sound of sorrow. The people of the Empyrean waterfall only knew that Qing Chen was thick-skinned, but they had never heard of what happened before Qing Chen came. Because at that time, his name wasn't Qing Chen at all. And the name Qing Chen came from his 2 companions, Jiang Qingyi and Xiang Chen. The 3 of them went from the village to the town, and then to the unknown place. They had experienced countless hardships, but during a relic exploration, he was the only one who survived. Before they died, the 2 of them said to Qing Chen, "Although we were born humble, our will is unstoppable. Only you can help us go on this road." That day, Qing Chen got the sea token. That day, Qing Chen named himself Qing Chen. That day, Qing Chen cultivated hard. Although he was usually a joker, no one in the entire Empyrean waterfall could compare with him in terms of hard work. At this moment, Qing Chen grinned. After this sound, it's impossible for me to forget my emotions. However, I'm not afraid of difficulties. Just like the waves at the top of the Empyrean waterfall, they never made me retreat. Suddenly the scene changed. Above the West Sea, the waves were surging. Qing Chen appeared here inexplicably. When he looked up, he found that Han Fei had been standing here for some time. Han Fei glanced at Qing Chen and then looked into the distance, only to find that Waterluster was standing on the sea, looking at them quietly. Qing Chen, on the other hand, sat on the surface of the sea. Is this an illusion? Son of AB*TCH, why are you here? Han Fei scratched his head and didn't hide it. On the floating island, if I want to get opportunities, I have to get luck first. Unfortunately, I met you. However, you don't seem to be in a good state now. Qing Chen chuckled. When have you ever been in a good state when you see me? Han Fei remembered that every time he saw Qing Chen, he looked sloppy, which didn't seem to be in a good state. Han Fei was silent for a moment and said, "Although we have a good relationship, however, I have to take away your luck." Chapter 949. The sea was surging, and because of water luster, the sky was dark. This battle was unavoidable. Qing Chen grinned. Let's fight. Anyway, we haven't fought before. I've always heard that your physique is very strong, but how strong is it exactly? I don't know. Let's meet. Han Fei looked back at the surging waves and suddenly said, "Since you're cultivating with the help of the Empyrean waterfall, why don't we compete in the waves? Let's see who can last longer. Whoever retreats first loses." Qing Chen's face was full of smiles. Great. It's a good competition. Han Fei looked at Waterluster and cupped his hands. Senior, can you do me a favor and make some waves? Waterluster's voice was cold. Sure. Hoop. Waterluster flew to the sky, flapped his wings, and the wind rose and the clouds surged. The first wave was as high as 70 or 80 meters. The moment the wave came crashing down, it was like a small mountain crashing down on his head. Oh! Qing Chen roared, and the ripples under his feet shook outward. His muscles bulged, and even his hair stood on end. Crimson light rose like a small universe breaking out. The waves seemed slow, but in fact they came very fast. Han Fei flipped his hand, and a kitchen knife appeared in his hand. What he was going to do was to cut the waves. Whoop! The waves rose and black clouds covered the stars. Han Fei and Qing Chen were in the chaotic waves. In the undulating waves they looked determined. In front of them there was only the wave. Devil change. In the face of a real wave, he had to use his secret method. Han Fei could even hear Qing Chen's deep breath in his throat. 50 meters. 30 meters. 10 meters. No one can stop me. Unyielding! Qing Chen roared, pressed his hands on the tide, and tore the huge wave apart. However, Han Fei didn't look at him. On the blood-drinking knife in his hand, spiritual energy was boiling, and the fire of spiritual energy was automatically emitting. Drawl, Chilla. In the terrifying huge waves, two tiny figures stood above the sea, in the waves and in the void. The huge waves in front of them separated. The terrifying power tore the tide apart, and it did not close for a long time. Even Waterluster, who was watching from the sky, couldn't help but be a little surprised. Both of them were physically strong. But now, Qing Chen was tearing the waves apart with pure strength. As for Han Fei, he slashed a gap in it. He didn't seem as courageous as Qing Chen. However, the first wave was just for Waterluster to test their abilities. Voila! It flapped its wings again. This time, another wave rolled over from afar. As the waves moved forward, they constantly absorbed the pushing force of the wave. Thus, the waves grew higher and higher. When it was 300 meters in front of the two of them, the height of the huge wave had already reached more than 200 meters. The waves continued. Waterluster said indifferently, "This is no ordinary wave. This wave is more than 30 miles wide. Borrowing the force of the wave to advance, its power is terrifying." However, neither of them paid attention to Waterluster's warning. They all knew in their hearts that victory or defeat would be decided by a single wave. There was no other choice but to fight. Han Fei turned his hand and put away the blood-drinking knife. At this moment, he turned his head to look at Qing Chen, slightly surprised. Because he found that Qing Chen's body was bleeding, and a strange power was condensing in him, more like a kind of soul power. No, Han Fei had never seen this kind of soul power, nor was it the power of law, but more like a terrible spiritual power, a manifestation of will. Han Fei turned his head, took a breath, and his eyes were firm. Now, in his dictionary, there was no such word as losing. Win or die. At this time, the most fundamental thing to support the invincible heart was faith. Han Fei's eyes were shining. His body was gradually dyed with a golden hue. In this darkness, he was unusually conspicuous. Waterluster's eyes flickered in the sky. Alas! Those who dare to take this path never have a good ending. The huge waves were already in front of them. If they looked up, they would find that the waves were curved, as if there was a big roof over their heads. That feeling was like a person walking into a huge palace. Looking up, he found that this one-story palace was more than 300 meters tall. That kind of insignificance of human beings made people sigh with emotion. Confronting this terrible power head-on, they had to guard a point, an absolute domain. Ah! Qing Chen's whole body, blood gushed out in an instant. Like a madman, he rushed forward against this terrifying huge wave. Sacrificing. Invincible domain. In an instant, Han Fei stepped on the void and launched a sacrificing punch. All his power was gathered on this punch. Also crazy, Han Fei directly blasted into this terrifying wave with his fist. At that moment, there was only the sound of the waves crashing in the world. Two silhouettes charged amidst the huge tide, extremely crazed. Qing Chen's body was stronger, and his terrifying will was covered with cracks, but he still didn't retreat. Han Fei seemed to have turned into a terrifying golden fireball, slowly rushing forward in the wave. Gotcha! Qing Chen finally couldn't stand it anymore. His will collapsed, he was overturned by the wave, and was instantly swept away a kilometer away. And Han Fei rushed in the wave, his eyes shining with golden light. He seemed to have forgotten that he had won. In the midst of 9 sounds, Qing Chen lay on the ground. No one knew how long he had been in a coma, but he finally woke up. He tried to turn himself over and lay on the ground, facing the starry sky. His body was dripping with blood, and it was difficult for him to even smile. Qingyi Ah Chen, this is really difficult. That guy is not a human at all, in the village, above the lake. Swish. Han Fei suddenly appeared, half kneeling on the sea, his face pale. Jiang Chao and Yang Xie's expressions changed drastically. Han Fei. Little junior brother. Puff. Han Fei spat out a mouthful of blood. I'm fine. Let me rest. After about 10 minutes, Han Fei took out a spiritual fruit and stuffed it into his mouth. At this time, he looked up at the sky, only to find that the sky had turned slightly white. The stars were gradually becoming hidden, and the 8 diagrams in the water began to blur. Forget it. I don't have much time today. I'll come back tomorrow. After a while, Han Fei sat on the shore and cast a few divine healing techniques on himself. Then, under the anxious eyes of Jiang Chao and Yang Xie, he grinned and said, I won. Who? The two of them heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. However, their expressions changed slightly. Even Han Fei, who had embarked on the invincible realm, had such a hard time winning. Was the person who snatched the map this time a devil? So strong? However, hearing Han Fei's words, many people around were relieved. It was good that they won. They had been trapped here for a long time and were about to give up. Han Fei's arrival did bring them hope. In the darkness of desperation, how important was hope? Who cared if he was a descendant of a big clan, or a disciple of a major sect, or a nameless cultivator? At this time, a glimmer of hope rose in their hearts. Who cared who got the sea-quelling painting? Anyway, they couldn't get it. Since they couldn't get the painting, why couldn't they go out? On the shore, Jiang Chao frowned and said, Han Fei, is the enemy very strong this time? Han Fei nodded. I happened to choose a very difficult challenge. Yang Xie smiled and said, Little junior brother, don't be too stressed. The starry sky will disappear soon. Take a good rest during the day. We still have time. This is already a very major breakthrough. Han Fei nodded slightly and looked at Ren Tianfei. Old Ren, do I still have to fight with you? Jiang Chao and Yang Xie looked strange and solemn. This guy is not easy to deal with. From the moment he saw Chao Jiaren, Han Fei knew that his last opponent was probably Ren Tianfei. This old guy was not someone Chao Jiaren and the others could compare to. But what made Han Fei curious was that if Ren Tianfei didn't come in person, would he really fight with him? And this guy was a top master who created the indestructible body art. His main body was so strong that his clone couldn't be weak, right? Ren Tianfei chuckled. Why are you afraid? Han Fei grinned. Of course I'm not afraid of you. Sometimes, I really wonder if you are waiting for me to collect all the luck so that you can defeat me once and for all. As long as you defeat me. However, even if I can defeat others, I can still defeat you. Ren Tianfei laughed. It depends on you. The sun rose and everything became calm again. The star chart disappeared, and if he wanted to go out to fight again, he would have to wait 6 hours. At this time, smoke rose in the village, and some adults led their children to the lake to fish. When the children saw Han Fei, they were full of curiosity. A little girl ran up to Han Fei with a pancake in her hand and handed the pancake to Han Fei. Uncle, have breakfast. Han Fei took it and said with a smile, Call me brother. The little girl was at a loss and looked at her father next to her, not knowing what to do. The father laughed and said, Just call me uncle. I'm only 20 years old this year. The little girl seemed to have an idea and shouted at Han Fei, Uncle? Han Fei laughed, picked up the cake, and took a bite. Han Fei asked, What's your name? The little girl said childishly, My name is Zhang Qiao Qiao. Han Fei looked at Jiang Chao, and Jiang Chao nodded slightly. I'm a descendant of the Zhang family from the Thousand-Star City. Han Fei touched his nose. Although he didn't get along with the Zhang family, he didn't want to distance himself from a child. Han Fei said, Qiao Qiao, don't go fishing with your father today. Uncle, I have fish here, very, very big fish. I'll treat you to fish. As he spoke, Han Fei waved his hand, and a silver-scaled fish more than 20 meters long fell to the ground, shocking the little girl and her father. Wow! Dad, what a big fish! Jiang Chao, Yang Xie, and the others were all stunned and speechless. You're here for the map. Why do you have fish with you? But in the next moment, a big pot, a barbecue grill, a mess of seasonings, and a pile of chopsticks appeared. Everybody was dumbfounded. Yang Xie's lips twitched. Little junior brother, you brought food with you when you explored the relics? The third chapter. Please vote. End of this chapter. Chapter 950. The little girl was stunned by the super big fish that Han Fei took out. With a swish, she ran into the village. Han Fei, Yang Xie said, little junior brother, they are all ordinary people. I'm afraid they can't even eat one bite of a creature of this level. Han Fei smiled and said, Senior brother, this is simple. First, extract the spiritual qi and energy from the fish's body. Of course, Han Fei wouldn't extract it directly. He stepped on the ground and a spirit-gathering array appeared. A large amount of spiritual energy gushed out of this silver-scaled fish. As for the energy, this was also simple. He activated the void fishing art, and a large amount of energy was extracted in an instant. However, practicing the void fishing art during the day would inevitably lead to the descent of heavenly fire. Fortunately, Han Fei extracted the energy very quickly and it only took him 1 second. But Ren Tianfei suddenly said, There is something wrong with your technique. Don't show it easily in the future, lest people think about it. Han Fei was stunned. Did old Ren feel it? Jiang Chao glanced at the sky. Although there was an invisible array outside the floating island, there was obviously something wrong with the morning light just now. If he guessed right, Han Fei should have some kind of powerful technique. Jiang Chao said, Senior Ren is right. After all, these people used to be opponents and each of them is extraordinary. Your behavior just now has already aroused some people's speculation. Han Fei grinned and said, Okay, I'll be careful next time. Ho-ho, after a while, when Han Fei just started to cut the meat, he found a group of children running here as fast as they could. Wow, it's really a big fish. Wow, it looks even bigger than my great-grandfather's contractual spiritual beast. Nonsense. Contractual spiritual beasts can become twice as big as they are now. Are we eating contractual spiritual beast? Idiot, this is a fish, not a contractual spiritual beast. Is this fish dead? Let me poke it. For a time, the children were chattering. Many adults, hearing that they were going to eat a big fish, also ran over to watch. After a while, there were already a lot of people around. All kinds of exclamations rose and fell. They had never eaten such a big fish before. Because the spirit qi on the floating island was very thin, the fish that could survive here were of very low levels, generally only at the 3rd or 4th level. At this moment, the shadow of the saber moved about, and a large number of scales were removed. No matter how bad it was still the scales of a silver-scaled fish. Now they were picked up by the children and treated as toys. An adult hurriedly stopped him. Put it down, these scales are sharp. Brat, you don't want your hand anymore? Little fish, don't move, give me. During the playful scolding, the fish oil and various seasonings had been poured into the pot. Rip! The oil splashed. Amidst the steam, the fragrance wafted. Not to mention the children and adults, even the experts such as Jiang Chao and Yang Xie couldn't help but swallow. Jiang Chao was surprised. Aren't these the little spirit fruits from the plantation? Why does it taste so good? Han Fei smiled. Senior uncle, I forgot to tell you that I actually have a hidden identity. Jiang Chao's face slightly changed. What identity? Han Fei said proudly, the best chef in the world. Jiang Chao. Everyone was wondering why this fragrance smelled so good. Only Ren Tianfei didn't respond at all, just staring at Han Fei's pot. Han Fei said, Old Ren, why don't you have any reaction at all? Ren Tianfei snorted. I can't smell it. Han Fei and Jiang Chao were taken aback. Can't smell it? Han Fei immediately realized that Ren Tianfei's body was probably not alive at all, but a corpse, just like when he was sitting on the step. Figuring this out, Han Fei felt much more at ease. If Ren Tianfei's body was just a corpse, then there was no reason for it to carry any luck. So, he wouldn't compete with him for anything. Han Fei immediately said to him via voice transmission, then look at my means. Let your real body do it. Ren Tianfei sneered. My real body? I can't contact my real body. Forget it, I'm tired. I'm going for a walk. Ren Tianfei left. As a corpse, it was indeed quite uncomfortable to watch others eat. He couldn't smell or taste, however. Han Fei didn't care about him. The fish had been put into the pot, and Han Fei also put some mushrooms, seaweed, shells, and other things in it. A large cauldron that was nearly 5 meters in size was now filled to the brim. Next to it, many children and adults were looking forward to it. After a while, the hot pot was boiled, the spiritual fire was put away, the light was dazzling, and the fragrance spread for dozens of kilometers. Han Fei smiled and said, Let's eat. Come on, Qiao Qiao, pass me the bowl. The little girl stood in the front. In other words, a group of children stood in the front, and the adults lined up behind them. Han Fei acquiesced. Everyone can eat it. It's just a fish. There are still thousands of fish in Forge the Universe. Slurp. Looking at the large piece of fish hot pot in the small bowl, Zhang Qiao couldn't help sniffing and said sweetly, Thank you, Uncle. Behind her, a boy raised his bowl and shouted, Uncle, I want it too. Me too. I want a big bowl. I want the fish's mouth. In a moment, the 5-meter-big hot pot was divided up. As a chef, seeing others immersed in their own food and unable to extricate themselves was a very fulfilling thing. Jiang Chao smacked his lips and said, Han Fei said with a smile, Junior uncle, don't panic. Those without spiritual energy can be given to them. Let's eat the food with spiritual energy. Half an hour later, Jiang Chao, Yang Xie, and Han Fei gathered around a smaller hot pot and began to eat eagerly. They ate until their mouths were covered with grease. Anyway, there were 3 men and no girls, so they didn't care. As for the other cultivators here, although they guessed that it would be delicious, no one came. After all, the sea-quelling painting was expected to be collected. At this time, they came to eat and drink. If they could really go out, they would inevitably be embarrassed when they met in the future. Yang Xie was shocked. Little junior brother, tell me honestly, is the food in the Thug Academy all like this now? Han Fei grinned and said, Senior brother, it's nothing. Now, the food in our academy is unparalleled in the world. There are many kinds of food. Yang Xie took a sip of wine, a little fascinated. He hadn't gone out for so many years, and the school seemed to have undergone earth-shaking changes. Jiang Chao said, Han Fei, how did you meet Senior Ren? The moment Ren Tianfei appeared, Han Fei felt that since this old guy didn't hide it from him, he didn't care. And they were all his friends, so Han Fei didn't need to hide it from them. Han Fei set up a soundproof array and said slowly, Old Ren, he's my half-master. Jiang Chao and Yang Xie were shocked. This was a venerable. How could Han Fei's identity be simple if he had a venerable as his teacher? However, Jiang Chao didn't ask much. Everyone had their own secret. The Thug Academy had always only accepted heavenly talents, so they generally never asked students about their secret. Yang Xie said, Little junior brother, is it difficult to seize luck? Are the people who came to grab the painting this time very strong? Han Fei thought for a while and nodded slightly. In general, very strong. There should be many heavenly talents who can fight law enforcers. Jiang Chao said lightly, Can fight law enforcers? They are indeed very strong. However, there should be many such heavenly talent. It seems that the strength of some people should be more than this. When the 3 of them were halfway through the meal, Suddenly, Han Fei saw a familiar figure appear at the end of the road in the village. Han Fei raised his eyelids. Yushire? It's only been 2 days. Does this mean that Yushire has passed the mist of 9 sounds? Han Fei couldn't help taking a breath, and his evaluation of Yushire in his heart was raised again. This guy who didn't seem to be outstanding and usually just squatted at the door of his house, looking at others and saying, "I'm so envious," was clearly a top heavenly talent. Except for Ren Tianfei, Yushire was the second to come here. At this moment, a group of people followed behind him. When he saw Han Fei, he grinned. Yang Xie's eyes flickered. This group of people is really strong. They arrived so soon, only 1 day later than little junior brother. Jiang Chao frowned and said, Han Fei, which family is this guy from? Han Fei shook his head. Not from the 1,000-star city. He's an independent cultivator. When Jiang Chao heard that Yushire was an independent cultivator, he immediately took a deep breath. It was not common for an independent cultivator to stand out. This showed that the other party had some mysterious opportunities. Han Fei smiled and said, "Shire, come and have some?" Haha. Okay. Yushire was as straightforward as ever. This showed that he was not affected by the mist of 9 sounds. He passed the grand emotionless sound on his own. Looking at Yushire's clothes, Han Fei knew that Yushire must have paid a big price. Next to the hot pot, Han Fei looked at Yushire and asked, "Is there anyone else behind you?" Yushire shook his head. "No. It's difficult to pass. They are still trying." Han Fei said lightly, "Shire, after eating, let's have a fight in the afternoon?" Yushire smiled. "Okay." In the distance, some people were discussing. "Here comes another one. I'm afraid that Han Fei has met his match. Another one can pass the mist of 9 sounds. He's extraordinary. Until now, I still haven't figured out how to pass the grand emotionless sound. It seems that our talents are still far from his." Someone sighed. "There will definitely be a fight between the two of them. I just don't know if there will be a third person." 4th. Asking for monthly votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 951. Now, Han Fei increasingly felt that being born in a good family didn't necessarily mean that one was talented. Of course, there were advantages, but they were often not as firm as those who had come this far on their own. Yushire was not from the 1,000-star city. He seemed to be from a village? Yes, a village, not a town. He was somewhat similar to Qingchen. Yushire was hot-headed and reckless. Han Fei could tell that from the battle he fought once. Want to win? He had to be reckless. This was different from his attitude towards those people in the 1,000-star city. Han Fei felt that although people like Yushire were secretive, their nature had long been revealed. At this moment, from a height of a kilometer, only 2 small dots could be seen from the ground. For these ordinary people and children on the ground, they were naturally envious of them. They also thought that one day they could stand above this void and shake the world. After all, they had heard too many stories about the outside world. For example, what creatures were there in the sea? What was the real floating island like? How colorful was the life outside? However, Han Fei was the first to come in. Moreover, he even performed it exaggeratedly. Therefore, Han Fei had long received the real blessings of these ordinary people. Psychologically speaking, these people preferred Han Fei to win. About 300 strong people, at this moment, some were sitting on their houses, some were standing in secluded fields, and some were beside those ordinary people. Because they knew how terrifying the battle between the strong was. Before entering here, these people all thought that as long as they came in, they would have a chance to get the sea-quelling painting. They thought that they would also kill until the sky turned dark and the earth turned dark, and blood flowed like a river. At that time, the ground of the floating island was almost broken. Now it was just restored after reconstruction. But in the end, they found that there was no chance. In the sky, Han Fei smiled and said, "Shire, we didn't fight in the Empyrean waterfall. I didn't expect that we would fight here. Since you're here, let's have a good fight. Yshire nodded with a smile. Okay. After saying this, the armor box beside Yshire slowly opened. He had seen Han Fei's strength on the ancient battlefield. Han Fei's speed was faster than his, and his strength seemed to be stronger than his, not to mention his physique. If he couldn't beat Han Fei in these aspects, then he could only compete in endurance. Yshire intended to compete with endurance, and Han Fei also thought so. He could not use the sacrificial punch, at least not right from the start, because once he made a move, he was likely to kill Yshire. There was another situation that was even more terrifying. Once he used it and failed to kill Yshire, he would be in danger. After all, Yshire was an armorist. If there were hundreds of layers of shields, would the sacrificing punch be able to break them? That was also a problem. Secondly, the reason why he didn't want to use the sacrificing punch was that he didn't know what level Yshire's spiritual beast, the immortal golden serpent, was. If it really couldn't be killed, wouldn't it be a waste to use it? He didn't use the void lines out of respect for Yshire. But if he had to, he would definitely use the void lines. He had to get the sea-quelling painting. Whoosh! Whoosh! Han Fei's figure flickered, and in the armor box of Yushire's soldiers, there was a roaring knife. Of course, Han Fei wouldn't look down on this attack. After all, this was a semi-divine weapon, and Yshire had the habit of blowing up semi-divine weapons. Devil transformation! Bang! The fist mark blasted out, and above the sky, the golden light was dazzling. Boom! Han Fei was speechless. You blew up your weapons with the first attack. So, you have an endless supply of semi-divine weapons? Han Fei was shaken back. However, the explosion of the semi-divine weapons could no longer hurt him. If it was before he comprehended the invincible heart, the explosion of the semi-divine weapons could hurt him. But now it was absolutely impossible. It would only leave a few scratches and bruises. How could that be regarded as an injury? Bam! 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 The fist mark rumbled because Han Fei saw that there were hundreds of semi-divine weapons in Yushire's armor box. Each of them had a faint red light. Han Fei recognized this feeling. It was Yushire's bravery and fearlessness in battle. Han Fei grinned. Shire, it's impossible for you to defeat me by blowing up your semi-divine weapons. Are you sure you want to destroy so many weapons? Han Fei guessed that Yshire must have found a place on the ancient battlefield where there were a large number of semi-divine weapons. Compared with the sea-quelling painting, the semi-divine weapons were not worth mentioning. Even if they were all exhausted, it didn't matter. This should be Yushire's real intention. Swish, swish, swish. Han Fei flashed wildly in the air, his figure floating. What he had to do was to kill this guy in close combat. The fist mark was like a dragon, excited and crazy. At this speed, the armorous torrent of knives and swords couldn't even hit him at all. Almost in a few seconds, Han Fei was already close to him. Yshire took out another divine weapon. Han Fei's eyes narrowed slightly. This weapon was at least a mid-quality divine weapon, which could seriously threaten him. Han Fei shouted, "Nine Mansions Dragon Seal." A dragon roar sounded. Under the pressure of Han Fei's Nine Mansions dragon roar, the greatest power it could produce now was about 10 waves of gravity. However, Yshire suddenly vomited a mouthful of blood, which was burning. The power on that long rod was so mysterious that even the void was faintly distorted. Rumble! Clouds and mist rose into the sky, and a terrifying power rushed down from the sky. And those who had already been prepared shouted one after another and rose into the air to protect this impact wave. Otherwise, these ordinary people wouldn't be able to survive at all. Below, those ordinary people actually couldn't see anything at all. They could only see the golden light shining in the sky. The ripples visible to the naked eye swept from the sky to the ground, which made them hold their breath. They must go out. In the future, they might also obtain this power. Above the sky, Han Fei and Yushire flew backward at the same time. The terrifying power of almost 10 waves of gravity made the golden seal in Han Fei's hand directly burst into pieces. It couldn't bear it at all. At the moment when Han Fei flew backward, the 100 weapons air-piercing strike was activated. Rumble, 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 the 100 weapons exploded, and a terrifying wave swept across the floating island. All the houses and fields that weren't protected collapsed directly. Some of the boulders were crushed to dust. Yushire vomited blood, and a golden dragon appeared behind him. His injuries were recovering rapidly, and Han Fei couldn't be seen at all in the explosion of the 100 weapons. Below, Yang Xie looked solemn. Little junior brother, do you have enough spiritual energy and energy to resist this kind of power? Jiang Chao also looked solemn. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be enough. As long as Han Fei tries to resist it, it will consume a lot of spiritual energy and energy. However, the road to the invincible realm is not so simple. Han Fei was the first to reach the floating island. How can he be dealt with by ordinary means? And those ordinary people who were protected by the strong couldn't believe this kind of terrifying power at all. Some children cried when they saw their house turned into powder in the blink of an eye. Dad, our house is gone. Mom, our house collapsed. An adult comforted him. Baby, be good. We're leaving here in a few days. Don't cry. Remember this scene. This is the world of the strong. In the future, you will also become strong and stand in this high sky. The remaining power dissipated. In the roaring explosion wave, a golden man appeared, stepping in the air, his hair scattered, but his momentum didn't decrease at all. Yushire grinned and sighed. So strong. Swish, swish, swish. Han Fei rushed away again. The golden fist mark blasted through the void, the air was ignited, and the huge fist mark crossed half of the sky. Oh! A golden flood dragon appeared in the air. Yushire rushed at it head-on, and the divine weapon in his hand emitted a dazzling light. Boom! Without any fancy combat skills, it was a head-on collision. Han Fei punched more than 30 times in a row and barely resisted Yushire's attack. The semi-divine weapon almost hit him. Han Fei gasped for air and grinned. 12, can you still hold on? Yushire's answer was very simple. Yes. Han Fei grinned. He hadn't refined the cosmic sword yet, so he could only use Snowmorn. Draw the sword. The world was illuminated by a flash of white light. Below, everyone immediately shouted, "Not good! Attack with all your strength and use secret methods to block it." In the sky, Yushire shouted, "Explode!" To Han Fei's surprise, this guy actually exploded his divine weapon with the help of his secret method. Could it block Snowmorn? Chilla! The remaining power of the divine weapon's explosion was finally shattered by Snowmorn. However, this also greatly reduced the attack power of Snowmorn. After all, Han Fei couldn't exert the full power of Snowmorn. And Yushire was the same as Chao Jiaran. Chao Jiaran was fighting Han Fei with all her strength, and Yushire was fighting Han Fei with all his strength. Bam! From the armor box, a divine shield flew out. Clang, the sound lingered. However, the low-quality divine weapon was not strong enough, so it could only barely block the remaining power of Snowmorn. Gotcha! Yushire's second low-quality divine weapon shattered. In an instant, he vomited blood and smashed to the edge of the floating island like a meteorite. Boom! The ground was shaking and a crack ran for more than 30 kilometers. Yushire knelt in a big pit. However, the golden flood dragon roared. Yushire was covered in blood and his whole body was on fire. He seemed to want to launch the last blow. Someone said angrily, "Is he crazy?" Someone was horrified. "He'll die. The winner has been decided. Why is he still fighting like this?" Jiang Chao sighed. He can withstand such a terrifying power. His spiritual beast is unusual, isn't it? Yang Xie swallowed and said, "Now I'm sure that the person who came this time is really strong." Blood flowed from the corner of Han Fei's mouth. Seeing this scene, he had to sigh that this guy was really stubborn. Even if he won, so what? Do you think you can steal other people's luck? However, at this time, Han Fei certainly couldn't flinch. He stepped in the air, and a large spirit-gathering formation appeared. In an instant, heavenly fire descended and instantly burned Han Fei. Han Fei's energy was exhausted. He couldn't eat spiritual fruits so quickly, and he had plenty of spiritual energy, so he needed the power of the scorching sun in the daytime. At this moment, he didn't care whether anyone found out or not. As long as he could win, he didn't care. Jiang Chao was shocked. Attracting the scorching sun in the daytime. No, Han Fei, stop. Yang Xie had already flown to the sky but was blocked by Ren Tianfei. Yang Xie said, Senior. Ren Tianfei shook his head. This kid is so cruel to himself. But it's okay. It's just attracting the scorching sun's essence. It's nothing. Yang Xie was speechless. How the F***ck is this nothing? However, in just 2 seconds, the beam of light disappeared, and Han Fei was bathed in flames. His skin cracked, but he didn't care. Yu Shire dared to risk his life, but Han Fei didn't? At that moment, in the big pit, a golden dragon broke through the air. This was Yu Shire's last blow. If he tried again, he would no longer be able to move. Break it! Han Fei roared and blasted out the invincible fist marks as if they were free, blasting the sky and making the void unstable. The strong masters all guarded their own territory, as long as they could protect their masters and their heirs. Looking at the shattered dragon's shadow in the fist shadows, Ren Tianfei shook his head slightly. You're too soft-hearted. Whether it's the invincible fist mark or the sacrificing punch, as long as I condense them, that brute can't resist them. Han Fei gasped. High in the sky, Han Fei glanced at Ren Tianfei. He's my friend. I want monthly votes. Hurry up and grab the vote. End of this chapter.